Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a 2019 French historical romantic drama film written and directed by, oh my goodness, Mealy Vinland Saga. These are some French names. Celine Skierma, starring Nomi Lant and Adele Haenzel. Set in France in the late 18th century, the film tells a story of a brief affair between two young women, an aristocrat and a painter commissioned to paint her portrait. It was that lady's final film role before retiring from the film industry in 2023. And I have another paragraph. Portrait of a Lady on Fire was voted the 30th greatest film of all time in the Sight and Sound 2022 Critics Poll. It has also been considered one of the best films of 2019, of the 21st century, and of all time. Mealy Vinland Saga. Love is fucking dead!
Love is fucking dead.
Or is it alive? Or is it dead? Oh my goodness. It's a
What do
little
you think?
interpretive, I think, at the end.
Is it number 30?
It's number 2 on my list, or at least it was.
Ooh.
But you know that list. Now, forget all that. We gotta go back to the beginning. We gotta retreat. So, everybody, this is Kyle Entertainment speaking. This is Mealy Vinland Saga about to speak.
Hello.
Also known as It's Mia.
That's
Or hold on, how do I Mia the title of this one? Merely a Lady on Fire. My goodness.
That's beautiful.
Let's go back. We decided to do this. Me and Mia have never done a solo little interaction like this before, so this is historic. I thought Portrait of a Lady on Fire would be a decent pitch to Mia. Mia agreed. Knowing nothing about this going in, which was crazy, because you accepted
nothing.
very quickly, and I assumed it was probably because of the subject matter, but you didn't even know this movie was French. So
No.
that's pretty funny. So what did you know going in?
Well, okay. When you pitched it to me, I knew absolutely nothing. I knew this is a movie that people like, and I need to watch good movies. So it was like, hell yeah. But I watched it with my girlfriend. And
oh my goodness, okay.
I
thought you were going to say I got spoiled.
No, well, they were like, oh, good, yeah, lesbian movie, let's watch it. I was like, this is a
God
lesbian movie?
Damn it!
Well, to be fair, when I watched it on HBO, and when I opened up the cover image was the two of them kissing. Yeah, so I was going to know that either way. I was going to know either way, unfortunately.
I was so excited because I think I knew that going in too. So, or maybe I didn't. But I remember I tried to get somebody else to watch this one time. Not Alidori. Alidori did watch it, but he's an idiot. And I was I was trying to somehow get them to watch it, and I was like, and without it being spoiled or something. Now that never ended up happening. But I thought I was going to live out that fantasy here today, but
oh no,
goodness.
Poor. It's kind of HBO's fault.
It is well, and your girlfriend's fault apparently. So I got a problem there.
True.
My goodness, it is, and that's lesbian stuff, romance stuff. I like all this stuff. The French part, take it or leave it. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I guess the first part was going to be you surprised at all these things, but I guess you were a little preempted by it.
Well,
so I guess.
Everything else about it was surprising. I mean, I didn't know the basic premise at all, so I found the beginning to be very intriguing. I was I was trying to figure out what's going on, and they play it very slow in telling you what's going on. I did really like that, but
yes, the
yeah, the lesbian part, yeah, could have been a surprise.
It's true, and it is the way it's built up is it could be a surprise. It's a great surprise if you don't know. Anyway, where was I retreating to before this? I think I found Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I think in the Cineflix, which is a YouTube channel that does top 10 yearly movie lists. And I remember in 2019, it was number 3 or something. And I remember seeing visuals from it and thinking it looked really cool. So I did watch it after that. That's how I found Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It was talked about a lot in 2019, especially towards the back end.
So what did you know going into it?
It was a RedTube staple at the time. I honestly don't remember what I knew. I don't remember if I was spoiled. Because the impression I had got from that video was not what the movie was. The impression I got from the video, the video about the movie was that it was like three girls, like aristocrat girls in like medieval France or something in a room. Because I think the footage for that video, or at least the footage I remembered, was like them playing cards or them like painting or
Oh wow.
sewing or whatever. So it's like, oh, it's like that. And I think they had said like one of them's pregnant and the other two are doing something or something. So I thought that was going to be like the plight of women in France while they're indoors, not allowed to go outside, something, something. That's what I thought the movie was. Obviously, it's very different. And all of the imagery in that video was like all dark and them inside. And then obviously the movie is very bright and stuff like that.
Yes,
So
very right.
I was subverted there, I suppose. But I liked the movie very much immediately. It was one of my favorites very much immediately. This is my third time watching it for the rewatch here. And I probably felt the same way about it each time. But we really haven't gotten your overview on the movie. My overview, for the people that have heard me talk about it, for the people who haven't, is that it's very good. The best, even. And nothing has changed. But Mia, I think your opinion is more interesting. Though I'm pretty sure.
Oh, what are you pretty sure?
Well, I'm going to assume Millie Vinland Saga liked this movie a little bit. Now, I will point out, Alita already did watch this and gave it a 3-star and called it boring. So,
with Elite Ari, sometimes I feel like you and I have very similar opinions, but this is not one of those times. What is he on?
He doesn't love love.
Here's the thing. He doesn't love love. That's the problem. He doesn't love women. He doesn't love love. You're so right. I think I gotta admit, the kind of like first half, I was a little disconnected from it. I was thinking, this is a very pretty movie and I like looking at it, but I'm not really into it yet. But the back half of this movie, it was spectacular. I was locked in. It was so good. So I really, really like this movie.
Yeah, I think I liked the first bit quite a bit. Now I was gonna say something hyperbolic there, but it wasn't true, Mia. Did you click onto what I was gonna say?
No.
I was gonna say I like the first bit better, but that's probably definitely not true. I do like it really is intriguing about like what's going on.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of people, and I think I have watched some reactions. I think there are some to this movie online, and I feel like it's very similar to Gone Home, the video game. Do you know anything about Gone Home, the video game?
No.
It's also never mind. You might play that someday. Should I spoil it? Anyway, it's similar to this in many varieties, and in a similar way, at the beginning, there's like a twist where it's like, is this a fucking horror movie? Where Marianne like sort of gets to the place at the beginning and she's all by herself and it's really dark and she like is like naked and she's doing that. So I've seen like lots of impressions because there's that first impression where you're like, oh, is this a fucking horror movie or some shit? Gone Home the game is kind of like that too. That's kind of Gone Home the game's like whole thing, is that you think it's a horror movie but then it's not. Oh, god damn it, I spoiled it. So there's lots of little things, and then obviously the build up to like, oh, what's this girl going to be like? She didn't want to paint, and there's a scary portrait without her face on it, and then obviously the slow build up to the reveal, and there's that great shot where she's like in the hood, and it's like spooky, and then she goes running, and then the hair comes down, but you had just been told that she had blonde hair, so that you identified that, and then she ran towards the cliff, and it's like, oh my god, is she going to kill herself like her sister? And then she turns around and she reveals, all that stuff. I do like Marianne shows up, she talks to the maid a little bit, and the maid gives her some information, then she talks to the mother, and then she's just scrolling through the house and doing all this. I like that plotting, and I like the slowness there. I don't know. There's something about it.
I totally agree, actually. I was actually so blown away by how close to their chest they play this intro. Well, but the first half, really. They don't even say the characters' names until pretty, like...
No.
They take their time to say the characters' names, because I remember it was like halfway through my notes I ended up writing down like, okay, I know their names now: Marianne, Eloise, and Sophie.
It's true.
I found so interesting, and I thought the intro was really good. They didn't. It never felt like I was being given exposition the entire time. Everything was very just naturally happening, and I really did like that.
Yeah, it is like the drip feed of information.
Yes, exactly.
I guess we didn't I don't know if we're jumping right into the chronological talk, but there's also like the framing at the beginning. Obviously I'm a big Berserk fan, you know. So I
Mm,
like flash forward framings, especially when you catch up to them at the end and they go beyond. Um
yes.
it's like a little trope, a little trick that I like a lot. And so we do that with the art studio at the beginning, which is some time afterwards. Um but yeah. Um, I think we are still in the overall section. Did you rate it on Letterbox yet?
No, I was
Um,
gonna hold off until after this.
Good, because I did bring up Letterbox, and I'm like, you better not scroll down, because me and Alita have a rule. You better not rate it on Letterbox until after the discussion, because I don't
Good.
want to be spoiled. Um, if you go on the Letterbox Portrait of a Lady on Fire page, it actually has a custom rating thing where they are little fireballs. Isn't that cute?
Oh,
Because
that's why. No, because my
mm,
my girlfriend went on Letterbox while we were after we watched it, and they're like, "Why did they change it to fire now?" I didn't
oh yeah,
realize it was
it's
only
a
for that
custom
movie.
thing.
That's funny. Okay.
There's like a few movies that have little custom things. I don't remember the other ones. For some reason, I'm thinking Blade Runner 2040, whatever that one is, might have a custom
Oh,
one, but I
really?
could be making that
For
up.
2049, that would be interesting.
Um, but yes, Letterbox. The Letterbox's first like initial jump in popularity was around this time, and this I know is a favorite on Letterbox because
Makes
it
sense.
does have a 4.4, which is about as high as you see on Letterbox. There's some 4.5s floating around. Um, oh my god, I'm looking at Aliari's 3 stars right here. My goodness.
I mean, I can't think of
Um,
anything this movie necessarily didn't do well. Like, there's nothing that really sticks out to me as a flaw. It is a very just well done movie for what it wants to do.
It looks like on Letterboxd the little graph they have is
Yeah.
22% 4 star, and that's like the biggest one besides the 46% 5 star. So that averages out or something, I think. Um, I actually haven't seen anything really else by the directors or the actors in this. The actor for Heloise, like I mentioned the Wikipedia page briefly, apparently she retired after this movie, so I didn't know
Which
that.
is heartbreaking to
Um,
hear because she was incredible.
Yes, I think they're both very good in this. Actually, a notable thing, I remember in the award seasons of this movie, the three of them, the director and the 2 stars, like walked out of a award ceremony because Roman Polanski got an award, and Roman Polanski had
Oh,
been like convicted of raping a 15-year-old or something,
right.
and that was like a
Yes.
big thing. I don't know if that has anything to do with her like retiring, like she's disgusted with film or something and she left. Um, the other two have gone on to do other things. I haven't seen any of the director's other stuff. I know a lot of them are like LGBTQ stuff.
Mm.
Like there's a movie called Tomboy, Water Lilies, Girlhood, and Petite Madam Manum is the most recent one. I don't know. But I actually haven't seen any of those movies, which I probably should have at some point. But you know, I've been lazy or something. And then I haven't seen anything with the other actresses. I've only seen one other French movie. Is this your first French movie?
Yes, actually.
Oh my goodness, we're just breaking so much new ground here. But I've seen Hiroshima Mon Amour,
Oh.
which I covered on movie night one time, which is a very obscure like um French movie about a woman who was living in Hiroshima like in the 60s. So it's like very fresh after the bombing, and she's like kind of dating a Japanese man, kind of not, and it's like her
Oh, okay.
traumatic backstory about how she like fell in love with a Nazi soldier, but she was French, and so after the war, like they obviously they killed her boyfriend, and then they threw her in like a cage for a couple of years because they thought she was like a traitor whore, and she was like that was like
Whoa.
her flashback. It was kind of crazy, and weird, but I thought it was okay. That's my only other French movie experience. Now, traditionally, people say French movies very slow. The French New Wave of the 1970s or something is like the best films ever made. That's what people say. Quentin Tarantino, listen to an interview, he's going to bring that up at some point. But I don't know. I don't really have any context for that. I've seen some Nerd Writer videos on some French films from that time, but that's about it. Um, so yes, French movies. Oh, one more point about the French. I nearly said elitary. Can you believe it? Uh, the French language, Mia, good or bad?
Good, I would say.
You know, you think that about 80% of the time, and then there's like one word that just sounds wacky, and it's like, ugh, French is yucky. It's always,
Was there anything like that in this film where you thought that way?
yeah, every couple of lines there was like a word where you're like, God damn it, French. How about you get good? These there's tiering of languages, especially audibly, that are good and not good. Like Russian is really good to listen to. German is just like French, where like it's good 80% of the time, and then one of those words is a little weird and sounds a little off, and that's no good.
Dutch is like if every word in German was the weird word. That's how it feels to me.
I guess I don't really have a Dutch voice in my head right now. I would have to listen, I think. Like, Korean is good. Japanese is good half the time. Chinese is not very good. It's a bit of an ugly language, I think, audibly at least. Now, Arabic, that's a language you want to listen to. That's a good one. Anyway, I've rated all of them, I think. Those are all the languages
Yeah, you
of the
covered
world.
every single language. Very good.
I've had this discussion before, so this is pretty funny. Anyway, that's just my little bit. I always have to bring that up. It's a little weird. But we forgive them. What are they? Not going to be French? Who knows? That's kind of my overall stuff, I think. It wasn't set in medieval times. It's the late 18th century, Wikipedia was telling us. It doesn't really come into play. It is post Black Sails. Oh, merely Vinland Saga, big Black Sails fan you are, as I am. The water looks like the Black Sails water. It's so blue. Can you believe it?
I didn't write Black Sails, but I did write, wow, water is so blue. Multiple times.
I don't know what they got. It's got to be color correction or something. They're lying.
I think it must be.
I never see water this blue.
I think it has to be. But it is just, like, all of those landscape shots in the beginning were just really, really good.
I think, because I made a video about Portrait of the Lady on Fire. I think it might still be up. It was an old Patreon video, I think, where I made the joke that this movie is kind of like, you know how like there's like a brand of anime that's like cute girls doing cute things, where it's like, I don't know, girls running around and like K-On! Or something like this is a show like that. Bocchi the Rock or something. Like that. Yeah, kind of. This is like pretty girls doing pretty things, or it's like they're sewing and painting and eating and drinking wine and being French, and look at these beautiful landscapes, which is kind of funny. But yes, those are sort of the overall thoughts. I still think it's great. I think it's really great. Well, I guess we haven't really talked about it too much overall. I think obviously the core of it is the relationship dynamic and how that's built up, which I think is exceptionally great. I think a lot of the theming and the implications and sort of the philosophizing sounds too broad of a word, because it's not about like philosophical topics. It's really just about like intimacy and love, I guess. I think that's all really great. I think and obviously also a lot of it is about like artist and subject, which I think is really interesting and cool. And the acting is like really good. A lot of the like the facial acting, in many of the scenes, a lot of the body language acting, I think is really good. I would say those are probably the three most standout things. I think it's shot very nice. I think a lot of the shots are very pretty. There's like the one like famous silhouette shot as they're going to like the bonfire. That's like that kind of famous. Great. Other than that, I guess there's not too many like super iconic shots that are, well, actually I do remember them all, but they don't stand out as like, oh, I'm going to put this in a cool compilation or something. And I would say the music in the sparse places it's used is like maybe the best thing about the movie. So those are all crazy good things, I would say. Do you want to add to our list of great things? Dispute any of them? What do you think?
I think the main standout to me was the facial expressions that they pulled off, especially Eloise's actress. Just
you like this one? It's interesting.
I was like so honed in on her. Like I felt like she was so good at conveying emotion, both in like a very I don't know, not aggressive, but a very like potent emotion, especially at the end. But
there's a word, and aggression
subtleties.
Yeah.
But the subtleties in the beginning when she's kind of holding things back but still showing them in her face, that just blew me away the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that completely just that this is like a perfect combination, I feel like, of filmmaker and actresses, because these actresses are so good at just selling a scene based on their facial acting alone, and then the film is so focused on on their faces, these like static shots of them. It doesn't move away. It doesn't show you what they're looking at, just them. And it is so,
Yeah.
so, so good. That was definitely my favorite part of the whole thing. I was just so honed in on that.
True. I do not disagree in any fold. To sort of, I guess we can jump into this bit because it kind of relates to what you were just saying.
Mm,
Um, there's an interesting part of me. Obviously, this is a movie about womanhood a lot.
yes.
Which maybe I should shut my mouth and listen, you know, that whole thing. I think I have some very like specific, like straight, possibly brunette male attachment to Marianne as like the perspective of the movie, which I think does dissipate intentionally later on. But I remember feeling this way where like from my perspective, when I'm watching the movie, I'm like very much identifying with her.
Mm,
I think she plays the like more masculine role at the beginning, kind of. I think once like the love stuff starts to happen, it is like incredibly equal in all regards, and I
mm,
think that's kind of part of the point. But this has always been because there's a shift, and this might be my favorite scene in the whole movie, and it's kind of the movie that gets singled out when people make like video essays on the movie. But it's the scene where basically Marianne undresses, not really. Like all of the things Heloise is like doing,
mm.
like all of her nervous tics basically.
Yep.
And then it shifts and Heloise does it back to her. And there's a realization that like I think that's where the perspective dies for me, where you stop like purely like seeing Marianne as like the protagonist. And it sort of becomes a much more even
Yeah.
deuteragonist. You
Interesting.
know, I learned that word when I was making Black Lagoon video. Um, because that scene is very impressive. I really like the acting, like the sharpness of like the clapbacks from Heloise in that scene.
Yeah.
There's, and I think it's such. I think it is. Me and Bacon talked about this a lot when we were doing our Cowboy Bebop thing, where there's a lot of the most like profound or deep moments in a story are sort of just. It doesn't have to be about something profound or deep. It's usually the same thing. It's usually like three like idioms that are like, wow. When you actually think about it with an example, it like blows your mind, and you
Mm,
remember that like the world is so complicated, and you're not the only person that exists, and you like have a moment outside of yourself or whatever. But that moment where you sort of realize in life that like you are not this omnipotent observer, like you're the camera man in the movie looking at things, but things are also looking back at you. You are not just like the seer, but you're also the subject in a lot of ways. And I think it is a pretty profound moment where I haven't even really considered Marianne being like someone Heloise has noticed or like observed or anything, because and obviously the beginning of the movie does a great way in like building this up of like you from Marianne's perspective are trying to look and see what Heloise looks like. You're
yes.
trying to uncover what she's like. She's like a mystery. And then she's like trying to sketch her ear subtly, and then she's trying to sketch her like hand placement subtly. And then she's like hiding things from her, and we're on from her perspective seeing all that. For it then to shift, I think is a very like it's like that obviously in life you feel that way because you only exist in your own body and your own perspective, and to replicate that in film and then crush it I think is really interesting. And I feel like it is usually a love or a first time romance kind of thing where you like realize that like feelings can be reciprocated, and it's like, well, this is crazy, because especially if you're like when you're like younger, it's usually just
Mm,
one-sided, you talking or not even explaining it to somebody, but like it's all
yeah.
internal. And then for it to like finally be external is like it immediately like kind of feels right, and like it does shift your perspective on things. And I think a lot of the aspects of that scene really replicate that. And it's also like it's like the saying where it's like, oh, the longer you gaze into the void gazes back at you, is like the dark version of this saying where it's like if you are doing something, like it is having an effect on you. If you are around somebody observing someone, they are around and observing you, probably. Unless you're like super creeping them out and you're in a telescope or something. Um, but yeah, I think, I don't know, did you have that same identification with Marianne or?
I was kind of going back and forth because I was trying to figure out which one do I project onto. And obviously in the beginning it is definitely Marianne, but then I feel like things definitely kind of shift, because you're definitely right that it there is a shift where it goes from a very clear, like, one is the artist, one is the subject, but then once the truth is kind of out in the open, the portrait becomes a very, like, collaborative thing. It's something they're working on together, and the relationship kind of takes that same turn at the same time, where they are both kind of acknowledging it and collaborating. And I feel like the that's when the dynamics start to shift. Eloise starts to kind of point out the things that she is noticing about Marianne as well, and it kind of, like you said, balances out. So I definitely think I was very locked in with Marianne as the perspective character in the first half, but it does kind of, once they really come into their own together, I feel like that kind of faded for me, and I was very just focused on them as a pair.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that at the end, of course, because it is, like,
Yes.
once again, just Marianne's perspective. I think also in the because in the collaborative process, there's also this, like, theme of, like, understanding the subject to, like, make a better portrait, because there is the initial portrait.
Yes.
And Heloise, like, is mad about it. She says it doesn't look like her, and it doesn't even look like Marianne, is one of the lines she has. Like, there's none of you in it as well. And, like, there's also a thing about, because there is commentary throughout the movie also about, oh, you're just painting this so, like, a man will like it or whatever. I think she teases her with that in the throat stuff later on. And obviously the all-female cast, basically, female director, the male gaze, et cetera, is definitely being commented on here. But there is also, like, as women as subjects of a lot of art, especially, like, art of that period, right? It's like naked ladies, or what's the most famous painting called again? Mona Lisa. That's just a dumb girl sitting there for us all to project onto and think is, like, super innocent or something, I'm assuming. I don't know. I haven't looked at it too closely. I don't know the backstory. I think there's definitely, like, an attempt to understand the subject makes, like, the art better, I think, and that can obviously be a commentary on, like, portrayal of women in film, of, like, well, if you think and try and understand women, then maybe they wouldn't all be Megan Fox and Transformers or something and be one-note sexy ladies or something. I haven't seen Transformers. I don't know. I saw her in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Remember those movies, Mia? Ever see those movies?
Those are incredible films.
Just as good as Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I think.
Yeah, Portrait comes close.
It dares to nearly threaten. But yes, understanding is another thing, and I think it is interesting. And it even comes out in sort of the other paintings and stuff.
Yeah, I do want to... Okay, a couple things. I think it is very impressive when because there was a manga I read, Welcome Back,
Manga?
Alice. Yeah, God forbid. And there's a very similar thing where I think it's really impressive when an artist can make an objectively good piece of art that intentionally misses the point in context. And I felt like the first portrait of Eloise is exactly like that, where you can tell, like, this is an objectively well done piece, but it just feels off. Like, it vaguely resembles her, but it's just, like, something's wrong. And I was really impressed by that. And I think in general, all of the painting in this movie, I was very impressed with. Especially I really loved those scenes where it is just kind of going through the process.
Yeah.
And that was just really fun to watch, and seeing it come together over time, I really loved that.
Yeah, there's, like, oh my god, did my thought just die in my head? Painting something. Oh my god. I give up. What was I gonna say? Something about painting and getting it wrong, and I googled Goodbye Alice to see what it looked like, and I've lost my train of thought completely, Mia. You must have been right then.
It is really good. And I think it is a really good payoff when you get the second portrait, because
Yeah.
that was just very beautiful, and the way her face, it's just it just like how the films focus on the actresses' faces in a lot of these scenes. I feel like the portrait was just kind of an extension of that, and it was really striking to me. I was just so invested, and I think I was also just way more invested in them as people by that point too, which is probably the intent. Really, that's kind of one of the
Yeah.
main points, is the going from this person is a subject versus this is a person I understand.
Yeah. There is some commentary on portraits just as a thing.
Mhm.
Because the mother is a character in the movie, and
Yes.
her portrait is like at this place because basically the same thing had happened to her when she was younger to get to here.
Mhm.
Um, and she has like a line about how like, oh, look at her up there. It's like she arrived here before I did. Um, like the portrait arrived before she actually arrived. So the portrait is like the first impression, and as like you have to capture the for like the marriage to work or something, you sort of have to capture the essence of the person in the portrait so they aren't like shocked when the person shows up and like
Mhm.
strikingly disappointed. Or it's even like with a selfie or something on a dating app. If it doesn't look the same as the girl, obviously there or the boy, then it'll be like disappointing in a sense, but this is like a step above that of just like looks not matching up or something. But like if she was like smiling like ear to ear or something, obviously that's not something Heloise really does. So
Mhm.
like it would give the wannabe husband a poor impression, and then things would go bad or something. And it's sort of
Right.
like you have to understand the subject to be able to portray that, because I think that was one of the problems you sort of understand about that first piece, where it's like it kind of looks like her, but it's not really her, and that's sort of the
Yes.
complaint she has. Um, and it
And
is
I
kind
think
of crazy when like
mhm.
they're like boxing it up at the end and like shipping it off, and it feels like a momentous moment, and it's also like obviously the moment of death for like the core relationship of the
Yep.
movie, and also like it's just it's like a freaky sort of like we work so hard on this, but it's actually like undermining everything
Mhm.
type of like conflict or inner conflict there. Um,
And I think all of that again just makes me think that Eloise is just so well casted. I feel like there was no better casting possible for this character, because I think the actress is very beautiful, but I wouldn't say like the most conventionally like
yeah,
striking attractiveness. It's very much like you definitely find her attractive, I think, when you first see her, but it's not like, I don't know, when you're building up to someone's face, right? How do you even meet that expectation?
it's not
And I
like
almost feel like she's
yeah.
not intended to meet it at all. You're meant to be a little bit like, okay, so this is what she looks like, and you're not like, because I feel like most of the time when films do something like this, where they're waiting to
It's like
show
the
someone's
stand. It's like
face.
Griffith takes his off, and it's oh my god, it's the
Yes,
most
yes,
prettiest girl you've ever seen.
yes. Griffith is the most prettiest girl I've ever seen.
Hmm.
Exactly. I totally agree. I think the fact that she isn't that kind of picturesque, but once you get to that final portrait, I feel like you can't help but be like, wow, she is gorgeous. And that really, I don't know. I feel like if you didn't have the perfect casting, you would not achieve that. So I am just blown away
Yeah,
by that character and by the actress.
I think it's sort of part of another note that I have here is about like the grounding of the movie, where it's
Mm,
like it doesn't feel like some actress is like here like getting painted or something. It does feel like they do feel like real
they
people.
all
They
do.
kind of look like real people. The To sort of pivot into the same sort of topic, it is
Mm,
really crazy. Like I always this is like a very different topic now actually. Um, the portrayal of like the olden days, back when we were young, the 18th century or whatever.
yes.
It is like fascinating to me how different like the vibes can be between like portrayals, because this feels like like honest, like outside of like technology trappings, it doesn't feel like this could be modern and they're just in like a remote place or something. It
Yeah,
almost feels like, which I feel like is probably more accurate to like this is like a weird fantasy that I think most period pieces play on, where it's like you are sort of fascinated, you want to be in the time period, right?
yeah.
And so this almost feels like better than the other ones because it feels more real in the sense of being grounded. Because like what is Black Sails is like 120 years before this, very different vibe. Like if you go and look at like an old medieval like movie, it's gonna be like crazy and different. Um,
I
it's
do
just
feel
very
like
interesting.
Black Sails to me, not to go into Black Sails, I don't feel like it sells me on being in the time period at all. I think it feels,
Interesting.
to me at least, it feels like a very, I don't know, like this felt like definitely in the time period, whereas to me Black Sails feels like it is an interpretation of the time period. It feels like a portrayal of it. I don't know what makes it feel that way to me, but
Interesting. I feel like in Black Sails
yeah.
the buildings like feel like that time period to me, even though I have no
Mm,
reference or something for that. I feel like, and I kind of felt the same way about the main building in here, where it feels like I don't know, it's like the way the wood is like laid on the ground or something crazy like that,
yes.
and it feels, and it's like it's like not like perfectly aligned like it would be if it was cut with like a saw or something like well
Mm.
like a mechanical saw or something weird like that. That is definitely something I noticed, but I did liken it to Black Sails rather than differentiate it.
It's because of that blue
This
water.
is yeah, it is kind of more interesting when it's like the 60s or something and movies were being made in the 60s. And it's like, how does Mad Men or like the Sopranos prequel movie like compare to like a 60s movie? And obviously the vibes are like
Mm.
entirely different. But it's also sometimes it comes down to like, is it because like the camera is so HD? Like, is that why Portrait feels more real because you can sort of see the clothes on them and that makes it seem more specifically realistic or something like that.
I wonder if
It
it
was
has
always fun.
more to do with the actual events taking place because this is a very grounded film
Yeah, because I
overall.
think like
Mm.
Napoleon is going to be like chopping people's heads off like down the street in like 50 years, or it
Yeah.
was 50 years before this or something. And that's like crazy that like I guess this is just another like the scope of humanity is very wide thing because if you
Mm.
I was thinking about that while I was watching the movie. I'm like, why would wars exist? This is like stupid. Like we're just hanging out on an island and being miserable and stuff, and we're gonna go to
Yeah.
Italy later and listen to music. Like nobody's getting in wars. Wars aren't real. It's ridiculous. And it's like I guess that's probably more what's happening here, where it's just like a like every time period is equally as diverse as this one. And obviously, if you went to different places in the world right now, it would be very different to what
Yeah.
we exist. It's just um like a
I
spectacle of or not a spectacle, a spectrum of different sort of scenarios. It's probably a silly point, and there's like it probably comes from no reference.
I guess I guess to me it's the focus on the mundane and
Yeah,
on the kind of life experiences of these women at the time. Nothing like they're not exceptional in any way. They're very much like normal people going through normal things, but obviously with drama dipped in. But
I
that's
think
what
that
really
is
grounds it to me.
yeah, I think that is part of the point, and I also think this is like in the way the sort of the patriarchal impression is like
Mm,
more in the shadows than overwhelming also makes it feel more real to me, I think. Where like usually if I don't think the point I think the movie assumes you already understand that rather than the movie being about like, man, doesn't it suck type thing.
yes, I agree.
Like I don't know, a different movie about this period would maybe just focus on that. And every time a man showed up, he would be dismissive and arrogant or something. And we would meet Heloise's husband, and he would be terrible or something like that.
He
Obviously,
was
there are
just
very
almost
little men in
nothing.
this movie at all.
Yeah.
There's just the sailors at the beginning, and they just seem kind of rude. But then I'm pretty sure that's like a French trope, so I don't know if they're just being normal. Like they don't jump in to like save her stuff after she goes
Yeah.
overboard or anything like that. Um, And later, like the one of them like just comes downstairs, and I think she says hello to him, and he doesn't say anything, and he just immediately goes to like boxing up the painting or something and walks out, and it's funny like that.
Mm.
The one art gallery small dude does have some actual lines though. So,
Oh yes,
you know.
yes, the gallery at the end. True.
Yeah, so all the way at the end. But I think that is another interesting thing where it is, and I feel like that's probably more of what oppression would have been like. Like it's probably not so overt unless it's like a moment of crisis where like the overtness, like a man would feel the overtness is like needed to like execute his position or something. Whereas it would probably like everybody in the world already understands this and understands how things work. It doesn't have to be like, it's not something they would really talk about really. Because it's so like ingrained. I don't know. That was another little separate point I was thinking about while watching it. Because I don't know. I like that there's an oncoming doom of like, well, we have like an out here, and this is like they're probably not going to run away or anything like that. And I think that's sort of part of it where they don't try to like fight it in a sense, but it doesn't feel like they're capitulating. It just feels like this is like forces outside of themselves. And that's what oppression is or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that kind of goes into when they kind of have a confrontation about that, about kind of
Marianne being
kind of like letting it happen. They've already kind of forfeited to it, and I think they kind of have like a misdirected anger and frustration about that.
Yeah, because that happens later when it's sort of Marianne, like the implication is like she blames Heloise for this or something, like she has some sort of resentment misplaced, which is obviously a very, very, very common thing in relationships where something bad will happen and it's like, well, if you had done that, then this wouldn't have happened. And it's usually not the best. It's like something you're definitely going to emotionally feel, but you sort of have to understand that it is not fair, especially the other person. And it's also like it's like selfishness versus the betterment of the couple, where it's like are you just doing that? Like, obviously this upsets Marianne because she wants them to like stay together. But for Heloise, like the best thing for her is probably for her to go and get married to this guy because there is probably no allowed future in their romance. And like she can go and live in Italy, Milan or whatever it's called. That's a Italian city. I looked it up. And stuff like that. So like it's like the set like how do you put this? This is like a common thing you run into in relationships where it's like a party, like what's best for you is not always best for the other person or best for the companionship, and you've sort of got to figure that out. But you're always going to sort of want the selfishness thing because a lot of the time the draw of a relationship is like mutual selfishness where like, well, let's think about time, for example. You've only got a certain amount of time in the day. But if you're in like a loving relationship, especially towards the beginning or something, both of you are probably going to have very strong feelings of wanting to share time with each other constantly. But eventually that's probably going to dissipate from one side and you're going to get like sort of antsy about that, especially if the other person's like, well, we got to think about the future and I got to perhaps go get a job so we can be more successful for me and for the couple. But the other person just wants to hang out or something like that. It's just like it's like a relationship beat that they hit at the end. And I thought it was very like well fleshed out, especially for their particular situation.
Yeah.
Good relationship dynamics or something. That's what we say. Very descriptively real. That's something we say around here. I guess we're talking about general theming stuff. We haven't really gone plot point by plot point yet. Do you have somewhere you want to go?
I do. Well, do you feel like there's... I don't know. Is this a movie where going plot point by plot point?
I think really definitely effective? for the second half.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so let's jump. I want to jump to the point where I locked in on this movie. So,
a campfire.
That's definitely where I was. That was like the sit up and lean forward moment for sure.
Oh, okay.
But when I really started thinking about this movie, so I was when we were kind of like in that first half, I noted that Eloise like turns around and looks back a lot. I was like, so for some reason I felt like, wow, that's like interesting. She does this a lot. So I was locked in when we brought up Orpheus and Eurydice
Yeah.
because that's when I was like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing now. And while they're talking about the story, because Sophie is like why would he turn around? That's stupid. And then both Marianne and Heloise were like, well, he can't help it, right? He loves her.
Yeah.
And there was the kind of conclusion they come to there was he doesn't make the lover's choice, but the poet's. And that kind of brings it back into the movie's theming around the like subject and the artist. And
and
like,
it's sort of like viewing if you take it literally in the context of that legend, fable, myth maybe. It is sort of like depersonifying the woman a little bit, right? It is like, there's like it's because it's layered of the interpretation. Because initially it's like, oh, the poet's choice is like, oh, because it'll be like romantic in more of the adventuring sense than the lover's sense. For it to be like, oh, I couldn't help myself, so I looked back, and this is like a story I'm telling later or something. And then there's also like there is the literal one of like, even though they were about to be there, he just couldn't hold off anymore because he loves looking at her so much, or something. It's that sort of like mythical love you hear about in legends. And then also there's very direct parallels of like there's ghostly Heloise in like the house, and Marianne looks back. And then obviously the big build up at the end is whether or not they're going to see each other, even though they kind of spoil before it that she's not going to look. And Heloise doesn't look in the end of the movie. She just watches the orchestra. It's interesting because part of it is like, oh, how meta is this as a comment? Is this like of course they don't get to live happily ever after because it makes for a better story. It's the poet's or the filmmaker's choice, not the like romantic, let's have a happily ever after choice. There's like a million different ways you can read this. I have watched videos of other people's interpretations, but
I have not actually gone into anyone else's interpretation of it, but like my own, and talking a little bit with my girlfriend on it.
So what do you think?
I was just so focused on the looking back thing, the not be able to help yourself. And I was thinking a lot about, like, I don't know, situations I've been through where, like, have I made a choice that was, like, very clearly this is not the thing you're supposed to do, but you're just, like, you just can't help it because of like a strong feeling, a strong like love, anxiety. So I was very, very, very focused on that, and I think it's actually funny. You brought up near the start about like the question of, oh, is this a horror movie or not? I started thinking that when the kind of ghostly Eloise started showing up, and I was like genuinely uncomfortable at those scenes. I was like, because they really, really make her feel like, I don't know, kind of otherworldly. It really
it's like
bothered me.
Like her dress is like flowing a little bit. It's I never took that as like, I thought it was just like, oh, she's having like hallucinations. Well, not really.
Yeah,
but it's,
I didn't
it's
take it
like
literally. Like, I definitely felt like, okay, this is the film is doing something, but like part of me was like, do I expect something to, like, should I be anticipating something to scare me here? Because I started kind of feeling that anticipation. And
I think
yeah,
because I'm starting to remember. I think the first time through, I was like 90% sure that there was going to be some sort of tragedy to like split them up, rather than it being perhaps as grounded as it was. Like, oh, Heloise was so depressed in her marriage, she drowned herself, and Oh, she set herself
Yeah,
on
there was
fire
the
or
time she
something.
ran to the ocean, and I actually did
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
oh my
because
god, what's she gonna do to herself? Yeah.
oh yeah, because she couldn't swim or whatever. Yeah,
Hmm.
and also obviously this is all like predicated on like the sister was supposed to marry
Yes.
this guy and decided to kill herself because she would rather like autonomy or whatever rather than all this. The there's also Marianne paints the scene from the myth or whatever at the art gallery where the little guy comes and talks to her.
Yes.
And his interpretation is like, oh, he did it as a way to like say goodbye. Um, which
Yeah,
is
he was saying.
interesting
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
because it's sort of like I would rather have a firm cut off goodbye moment as sort of a remembrance rather than like because part of you like starts
Mm.
brainstorming like practical ways out of this. Like Marianne goes with them to Italy and she tells the mother, "Oh, I've got some art potential customers in Italy, so I got to come too." And they're like Jamie and Cerseiing it up there, and they're running around or something like that. Like that's a potential way out. Of the sort of like a hyper practical, non sort of romantic, non storytelling appropriate sort of way to potentially think about ways you could get around them having to never see each other basically ever again
Yeah.
after the end of the movie. I think this is sort of an explanation of that too, where it's like, well, they do have the hug, which is interesting because it isn't as dramatic a goodbye, and I think it's a very interesting, descriptively real little moment where they have to say
Yes.
goodbye, but the mother is there, and it's like the it's like a scenario where you have it's probably a relationship thing most of the time, where it's like maybe you're like I don't know, somebody else is now in the scene and you don't know how to act because it's
Yes.
like well, this other person is here, which changes the dynamic. And also, we have some things to address, but like now we can't because we can't do it in front of the other person. But we also can't even let on any of the things that would lead to that. And then it's sort of like it's almost awkward to like, you can't even think like, we could literally just both walk out and walk to the side and she probably wouldn't think anything of it. But because you feel so frightened in the moment, you like can't think of anything. So they sort
Yep.
of just do the hug and she sort of like crouches on her neck a little bit where she can't be seen and then she like
Yeah.
walks off pretty abruptly. It's sort of like a firm goodbye thing. Um,
Well,
and then, yeah,
that hard cut there. That really stood out to me because like
yes.
she like really goes for it, and then it's like boom, going down the stairs, and that actually plays really well into what you're talking about with the painting at the end, the Orpheus and Eurydice painting,
Yeah.
where I well actually I thought it was, let's see, I was thinking about why, because it was he was saying most people draw, well, paints rather, most people are trying to portray the moment of her being taken away, or the moment before he turns, or the moment he turns, to get you that
Yeah.
anticipation. But she portrays the like this kind of in between of Lem saying goodbye, almost like, and
Yeah.
she wants to, like, I don't know, create this goodbye that she didn't really get to properly have, sort of like
See,
a
I think it
making a
is a
closure.
reflection of what they had, kind of.
You think so? Okay,
Because
explain.
because I was just thinking, because it kind of ties into the subject thingy of like people either show like the girl screaming because the guy turned around, or the guy's sort of issue. What do you call it? Complication problem. Like
Yeah.
it's like not from her perspective, but it's sort of mutual in the painting, which would reflect all the
Mm.
like the mutual stuff. Because the girl is like falling back almost willingly, realizing what's happened, and she's like waving. And
Ah,
I don't
yes.
think you see the
Okay.
face of the guy. So I think but I think it is supposed to be like it's not as literal the moment they had, but it is sort of like an acceptance
Yeah, there is an acceptance there. Yeah.
and like because it's not as tragic as you would think, like you are anticipating it being. And I think if they had played it more straight and they had had a moment alone and they had like cried or something, um, I feel like it would be less impactful. It also does feel less real because very often you don't really get goodbye moments. especially in
Mm,
like breaking up relationships or separating relationships. It sort of just dissipates over time, and then you sort of realize, well, I guess it's over type thing, or
mhm.
it's um more firm and not mutual. Um, so I don't know. I think it kind of is because it's not as explicit as it is in the painting. So I could see where you would say it's like her wish fulfillment in a sense. But I feel like it's more like trying to capture the feeling of that moment. Um,
I
and it's
think,
pretty obvious, like
hmm,
Marianne is like
yeah,
still thinking about it quite a bit, and like because she makes that painting, she makes the portrait of a lady on fire painting, um, and then obviously with the page number and everything, it's mutual on the other end of Heloise in through
yes,
painting is thinking about her. But also Heloise has a kid and a husband and is probably moved on more. And I think that's also reflected in the fact that she doesn't look at the end, where it's
hmm,
sort of like a, and that's a sort of another bringing it back to like identifying with Marianne and sort of her being more of the male insert, at least from like my perspective, is like you almost always feel like that. I feel like as a man in like relationships that end or something where it's like you feel like you're thinking about them always and they just never think of you and they move on so quickly and stuff, which is almost always just one-sided self-pity kind of
yeah,
uh
I would agree with that.
assumingly. um and it sort of feels like it feels like that where it's like, oh, Heloise has like got more stuff going on, and it is sort of like the remembering, because it's not exactly the thing that everybody says about don't smile because it happened or whatever, but they have a line like that where it's like don't regret, remember or something. um and that's kind of they're kind of at opposite ends of that at the end, right? Because
Yeah,
Marianne is looking directly at Heloise, like kind of regretting, and
yes,
Heloise is just remembering through the piece that
yes.
Marianne played for her a bit at the beginning, and
Hmm.
the orchestra and all that stuff. So, um, was I making a point there?
About the why she painted that part of
True,
the Orpheus and
that's
Eurydice
where we're at.
piece.
She had
I
a
think
very nice blue outfit there.
you made a really good point actually about um how the most of those pieces are from the Orpheus male perspective, because I thought it was really interesting how the art guy she was talking to, the short dude, he was like, "Oh, this Orpheus piece." It wasn't like
Yeah,
Orpheus and Eurydice. It was very much like he's focused on the Orpheus of it, and she's almost not really like Orpheus is clearly not the focus, but like I don't know, it's not like Eurydice is the focus. It's just
it's
them
more
and
mutual,
a
which is
mutual
what it should
thing.
be.
Yes,
Whereas
exactly.
when it usually is the male perspective.
But
Um,
I can't help but disagree in the idea that they did have a kind of there was a mutualness to it where they both kind of acknowledge and agree that this is what's going to happen, but I feel like there wasn't a closure goodbye, and I do feel like the way she painted the Orpheus and Eurydice painting was kind of to be
yeah,
a I don't know if it's like a wish fulfillment. It almost feels more like a like trying to put a positive spin on something that happened to
yeah.
you. You know, where
I
it's
think
like, oh, we like it was mutual. Like we were saying goodbye, but I feel like
yeah, it's like a
the way
dramatic
that
reinterpretation of
yeah,
yeah.
but the way
Um,
that scene actually happened was so abrupt. It was like the embrace was cut short. The like the
I feel like
turnaround and hard close of the door so quickly, the fade away. It's so it feels so ripped away. I can't help but not but think it wasn't that mutual, or at least it wasn't a complete goodbye.
yeah, I feel like my I sort of feel relief that it like ends like that. Uh, like that it isn't this teary eye goodbye. I feel like that would have
I do
been
agree.
it's because it is like it's like two layers of like, well, it would be sad to see them cry from like a movie perspective, and like, well, I kind of would prefer if we didn't do that, thank you, and sort of relief in that, but it's also a relief because it's quick, and I feel like it's sort of a thing. Oh, the like like the night before where they're like trying not to go to sleep or they're watching each other, making fun of each other for nearly falling asleep, which I
Yeah.
feel like is something every like new couple does.
Yep.
The there is also a doom clock, and I've been on this even in my relationship where it's like I gotta fly home tomorrow. It's like those like last. There's like a lot of regret and a lot of like you know that word, of like it ending. For it to be like quick is sort of like a relief in a sense, apart from the other relief. I feel like.
I do think I agree in a way, but I also think I don't know. I feel like, to me at least, the abruptness almost added to the like pain of it. Like there's something to be said in the angle you're coming from. Like, okay, it's not drawn out. You know, you're able to kind of accept it and start moving on a little quicker in a sense, and there's sort of a relief in that. But like the lack of closure and I feel like that kind of overtakes the relief for me.
Yeah, there's also the double angle of like the emotions of the end can't really exist with closure. But I feel like outside of a like silly, well, the movie has to happen point, which is whatever. It's sort of like I feel like when you are feeling the emotions of the characters in these moments, it has to come from sort of a place of relatability of like moments in your life when you didn't get closure, which I feel like is kind of a Sopranos talking point too, but like you don't really ever get closure in anything. Like things just continue on until you decide retroactively that they're over in a sense.
Yep.
Now obviously relationships are usually more firm than that, but or like when you quit a job, like there's a day you stop working. But at what point do you actually get the mindset that you have moved on from that job, and how often do you think about the job or something like that? And sort of the lingering pain of that is sort of I think it is more what's being played on here. I don't know, because a part of me is like, and I guess this is the poetic thing from the myth or whatever, is like there's almost a gladness in the tragedy. This is actually something we would talk about in Cowboy Bebop all the time, where it's like part of the appeal of Cowboy Bebop is that like it feels good to be reflectively and melancholically sad a lot of the time.
Okay.
Because it kind of makes you feel like you've lived a life or you've felt emotions, and like apathy is kind of the worst thing. And I think it plays on that a little bit, but I think I've jumped like 2 subjects now, so I don't know what the fuck. Closure, there was not. Relief, perhaps. I think that's what we just said, right?
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I'm curious.
Oh, there's another.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just quickly on this. I think a massive strength of the movie is that this like sort of thematic interpretive density is very interesting, because obviously you're supposed to think about all these things, and it's supposed to like stick with you, right? It's like the show don't tell thing kind of. But it is a little bit more than that, and the movie, I feel like books are usually like this, where this is like what you study in English class, is there's a lot of thematically dense symbols and things that like reiterate on each other, and a bunch of things that if you line up, you can get an interpretation, but you have to line them up, or you wait till the English teacher does it. And then you sort of, there's also the ambiguity angle of like, you are allowed to think about these things. And even if you can kind of piece together what actually happened, sort of the effect that has, and like the dialogue between artist and audience is sort of played upon. I think it is specifically another strength of the movie. The other movie I wrote down here that's kind of like this is The Crucible, which is a movie about the Salem witch trials. Me and Ali already did a movie night on it one time. It's also in my top 10 list, not as high up as Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's probably more thematically dense than this one. But I think that is a great strength of that movie too. Now that movie is also adapted from a very famous play, whereas this is just an original screenplay. Where I think usually people say like books have more time to sort of reflect on these sort of thematic densities and stuff. But I think that is a very strong point of the movie. There's the myth thing. There's the thing we talked about earlier with perspective and gazing at each other. There's the art and subject thing. Then there's also the meta thing about how this is being portrayed, because obviously this is a film. There's
Yep.
like a bunch of this sort of interpretive stuff that feels very like intentional, that you are definitely supposed to think about all these things throughout the movie. And they're sort of all mini mysteries, I guess, that you can speculate on, which make them pretty good for discussions, I suppose. Um, that's just a little point I wanted to make.
Mm.
You wanted to go somewhere else, Mealy Villain
Yeah.
Saga.
So, have you ever seen the play Hades Town?
I have not even heard of it, I don't
You've
think.
not even heard of it. Okay. It is another portrayal of the Orpheus myth. And
Interesting. I think the
I
only
think,
time,
yeah.
like,
Mhm.
I feel like I've heard Orpheus's name before, but outside of this movie, I don't think I've had any engagement with any
Okay.
of these myths.
That is probably why I locked in on that moment so much, because I I saw Hades Town probably about 2 years ago off Broadway, and it really did stick with me, and I've thought about it a lot. And a huge part of the way, I guess, Hades Town's interpretation of it, or at least portrayal of it, is the idea that, like, this is such a commonly known myth that you know how it's going to end. You know, he's always going to turn around in the end.
Yeah.
But you get so invested that you start to think, even though, like, it's like you're seeing maybe you've seen Hades Town like 3 times, but you're like, oh, maybe this time he won't turn around.
This is
And I feel
definitely
like,
a feeling you get in
yes,
other things. Like, I remember watching the Pokemon anime, and I knew Ash was always gonna lose in like the depending which Pokemon league he was on.
yeah,
He always
yeah,
loses at some point. He never wins. But every time I would play the DVD, and I'd be like, this time, if you play the DVD 100 times, it gives you the alternative scene where he wins. I know it's gonna happen this time. But it never happens. Wrestling is similar to this, especially when I was a kid. I was like,
yes,
oh, he's gonna win this time. He didn't win this time. But yeah, I definitely understand that feeling of like, it's got to be different this time. With the and obviously this, it has to be like a very, obviously those are personal examples, but this is sort of a more, I guess, intertextual example of like, everybody's heard this myth. Everybody knows where it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. It could be like Jack and the Beanstalk or something, right? Is the giant
yeah.
actually going to win this time? That
The
bastard
way
Jack always wins.
the way Hades Town focuses on it, the whole thing is kind of, it has a narration to it, but the entire play is in song. There's like an album, and you could get the entire story just through the album. It has all like the narration is song, the dialogue is song, and the kind of final conclusion they come to through the narration, at least, is like, we know how this is going to go, but we'll keep telling this myth again and again. Like, it's something we'll just keep going back through it and hoping that it will turn out better this time. And then the play kind of, it doesn't actually fully restart, but it like, all the actors go back into place, and the first scene kind of begins again, and then it ends. It's like a very meta loop of the, like, we are going to, like, keep telling this, and maybe this time he won't turn around. So when I was watching this and they brought up the Orpheus connection, I was so honed in on, like, oh god, she's going to turn around. Like, this tragedy is going to happen, but I'm really hoping it doesn't. But I do think I don't think there was a point where I thought maybe it will work out for this movie, and maybe I'd feel differently on a rewatch and, like, kind of feel that hope and think about it a little bit more. But I'm curious, how did it feel on rewatch to anticipate the turnaround at the end and the tragedy?
I think the first time I watched it, I remember making the point. It might be like, you could probably find the tweet, where I remember being like, I'm so glad she didn't turn or whatever. And I don't think I was thinking about the myth at all. I think I was just thinking of like Like, because obviously there's an alternative universe where the ending of this movie could have been Heloise does exactly what she does. She cries, and then she turns and looks at the camera, and then we cut.
I did anticipate
Um,
that. I did think that might happen. I do. You're actually. That's a brilliant point. I think that is where the hope part actually comes in, because like I could definitely picture on a rewatch watching that scene, and part of me thinking like, could she turn and look this time? I think that's actually a really good point. It's so
I
interesting because it's
don't
almost an
think,
inversion of the
yeah, it
Orpheus
is. It's the
myth.
opposite, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, because part of me is like, is how much of the movie? Oh, first of all, I had the thought. I'm like, is the eclipse just this fucking myth? Because Griffith looks back at Guts and like right before he says I sacrifice and says only you could do that thing, and then he's like grabbed by the hand and like taken away, and it's like the underworld and stuff. So I had that thought, but then I was like, is the whole movie like, is it just the retelling of this myth? But then
I
I
don't
think
think
it's like,
so.
and then because then you were bringing the thing up about like all these sort of stories about how like they always end the same way, and then this sort of not ending, like it doing the opposite thing of her not looking, but it doesn't end in them like escaping the underworld, right? It's not like they run away into some egalitarian lesbian village somewhere. um the
Well,
it is
that's
interesting in that
interesting.
sense
Yeah,
because it
they
more
kind of do
ties
both,
into,
don't
I
they?
think, yeah,
Sorry,
because
go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it kind of more ties into the like the remember don't regret thing. um
Yeah, that was a
which
good
is
point.
just something that they say to each other. Now I do have a bunch of their lines. Like they do have some incredible lines to each other at the end of the movie. Well, in the second half. Um, and maybe there's some commentary there about like these myths are just myth, but like what we create together is like more impactful. And it's almost like that line that Marianne says to Heloise, or whichever way it is, about remembering and not and regretting or whatever is actually more powerful or something than the myth. And it sort of overrides that. And it's like obviously a lot of the subject artist thing and a lot of the filmmaker audience thing is about looking. Um,
Yes.
and how much of it is looking back or looking towards something, or and then there's also the obviously the orchestra is very much an experience at the end, especially for
Yeah.
Heloise, who is like it's one of the benefits of her that's told to her for her going to live in Italy. I think that all sort of folds in on each other.
Yeah.
um
And I
I
think that's
honestly
why
don't know how to think.
yeah.
I definitely think the goodbye thing is supposed to be kind of what we take, because obviously there's like a way, obviously themes are unraveled in stories, right? Like the interpretation they have very initially when they are talking about the myth is obviously not the interpretation we're supposed to take away, right? This is going to be
Mhm.
iterated on. um and that for the eventual revelation to kind of be this goodbye painting, but is that the final point, or is the final point the final scene and
I'd
you're
say the
supposed to
final
reinterpret
scene.
that? Yeah, because the painting is very much like Marianne's view on it, and then you could interpret the last scene as Heloise's interpretation of it, which is her just listening to the orchestra remembering. um I don't know.
I
um
do think it is really, I don't know, because like a big part of the myth and the turning around is that Orpheus is like I guess why he turns around is always up for interpretation of what, especially of course the what is the poet trying to convey, because it's like any number of things. Is he worried that she doesn't actually love him enough to stick with him? Is he worried that he's being tricked by Hades and she
yeah,
isn't actually there? There's so many ways to interpret, and there's also the interpretation of, does he just love her so much he can't help but look at her?
yeah, and even that he's right
And
there, he still had to give up or something.
yeah, but either
um
way he always turns around, and I
Because you could
yeah.
interpret the like figuring out it's a trick thing as sort of like the hallucination scenes where Marianne looks back and it's like, oh, maybe she figured out that it was a trick in that moment and that's why she looked back there. And it was like, oh, this is just like my mind playing a trick on me or something.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, yeah. Um, there's many ways to interpret it, I suppose. Um,
I think this is part of why the filmmaking with all of these shots that are so focused on the observer and not the subject that they're observing, very focused on a just static shot of someone's face while someone is off screen doing something or something's happening
Yeah.
off screen is it just really stuck out to me because it is almost so interested in observation and like there's more to say in focusing on the observer, like the with Heloise's reaction while she's watching the orchestra that is just happening off screen, but there's a lot of more subtle moments. Like there was one that stuck out to me where like Marianne and Eloise were working on the portrait, and I think Heloise walked off screen to do something, and we don't even like see what she's doing. You can hear that she's doing something, but it's just focused on Marianne watching her do it.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that, and I have to I don't know. It's like almost trying to build up something in you that you want to see what they're seeing. You want to look, but you can't. And it's just so cool how well they. I don't know. This is like one of the better examples I can think of where I feel like the filmmaking and cinematography is so intentional with the themes. I can't think of a film
it does
that
feel cohesive.
Does it better, to me at least. I can't think of a more standout example. Just like every placement of the camera is so intentional in how it plays into the themings and the point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I just haven't watched enough movies.
No, I
by
agree.
Great directors.
I was just going through like my favorites, and I'm like, well, Blonde is like very erratic. The Godfather is very like plot heavy. The Evangelion movies are very abstract and weird. It's like this is very focused. It's very pinpoint. Even something like The Crucible, I wouldn't. It's like more dramatic, I guess, which would separate it from this in sort of a very direct. Because this is a movie with a lot of like seemingly ancillary, like slow stuff, like I could see somebody being like, do we really need to see her painting the thingy on this one scene where she's not really doing anything? But obviously it is a very intentional build up and stuff like that, where it feels like it's all directed to sort of like a point or an end that serves the larger whole, I guess. So yeah, I think I agree with that. Just quickly, I was reading through my notes very briefly, just to basically cap off a bunch of things we've already talked about. On the perspective thing, I thought a neat little examples is basically what I got written down here, where like early on, like Marianne is like trying to catch glimpses of her after she's already seen her face, and there's like the great shot where she looks away, and then like she looks and Heloise is like looking at her, and how the camera is like placed. Yeah. Like as her face is turning, it like captures her. I think that's a really great shot. I tried to make that my Twitter thread image, but it doesn't really work as a static image. So I went with her seeing the painting instead. But that was just a little point on that. How much is this? Curiosity killed by marriage and inequality. Eloise is naturally curious about music, running, and about nature. That is true, I guess. There is kind of that theme of repression at the beginning where Heloise has like a line about how she's dreamt about this. Yeah. And Marianne is like, what? And she's like, running. And I was like, oh yeah. Then girls aren't allowed to do anything back in the olden days. That is a thing in The Crucible where like they all like go dancing in the forest or something. And it's like this, like they all get whipped for it. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. There are other things here. Before we get into like the back-ended plot points I've written down. Now I do have a Eurydice or whatever her name is thingy here, and looking backwards, he chooses the memory of her over the actual thing. Poet choice, not artist choice. Halloween does not look back. Perhaps she was the one who said turn around. Oh, that was an interpretation they potentially have at the end where it's she whispers turn around to him. Which it kind of makes sense in the painting at the end, where it seems like she is waving, like she tricked him into turning around and then chose to
Mm.
have a goodbye and took the power out of his hands, I guess. Marianne is taken aback by this. Oh, yeah, in the moment. Is it another autonomy thing? Silhouette shot that follows. True, then they head off to the bonfire. And then I think the rest of it is just plot by plot notes for the back end.
Yeah, are there any kind of scenes that we kind of want to go back and cover? Because we kind of did skip to the end a bit, just with the whole thematic.
Yeah, I basically start these notes at the bonfire, so anything before that particularly.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything before the bonfire. I'd really.
There's the scene. Like, there's scenes where they slowly start to like sit closer to each other, where you're supposed to be like,
yeah, the
friends, question mark?
When she's playing the piano.
The piano one is a big one. Yeah. That when they're sitting on the beach, they kind of get close and they kind of look at each other. There is one where it's like a look. It's like the pre-kiss look, but one of them looks away.
Yes.
And a bunch of other ones, but then most of the rest of the stuff comes later. I have a point here moving into sort of the bonfire scene. I think the bonfire scene is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. I guess we haven't mentioned that Sophie is pregnant, and that's kind of a big thing they do. It's also obviously another like womanhood sort of exploratory thing, where they're trying to do like all these ancient sort of abortion methods. And there's sort of like the old crone kind of character.
Yeah.
And she's got like all the kids clearly for the abortions that didn't work and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that it's abortions that didn't work. Because okay, first the bonfire scene, because that happens before the second abortion scene. That's definitely when I really was like, okay, this is a spectacular film. The just audio,
the hymn is like great.
Just that experience was really great, and the culmination in her catching fire there, and just her the entire time of while that's happening, the observation of Eloise, because I think that's the first time we see her really smile, like a real smile, and that stuck out to me. And then when she's on fire, there's almost no reaction at all. And
she doesn't even realize.
What do you... I have my thoughts on that, but I want to hear your thoughts on that first. The lack of reaction. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I think it's just lesbianism.
The yearning, yeah, okay.
Well, everybody, my internet sucks and we cut out for a second, so we don't know exactly where we cut out, but we were talking about the hymn scene, and I made a funny joke about how the fire her catching fire meant her catching feelings and lesbianism. That was very funny. And then I believe I was talking about a tracking shot, an eclectic group of women, Mia. You reckon that's where we were up to?
Yeah, no one heard that part. They heard the lesbian joke, and then you started cutting out.
Tracking shot. There's a group of women, and they all look very different, and it's like inclusive and stuff. And as the shot tracks, the hymn starts, and as they get to the new person, they start a new part of the hymn, because it like I don't even know if hymn is the right word. I don't know anything about music.
I think hymn is
but
right.
They like layer it. And it's really cool, and it sounds really cool, and it's this moment of realization, and then it continues over into cutting to them like grabbing each other as they're like running around on the beach to get down on the rocks, and then they kiss and stuff. My goodness gracious me! Oh my god, I thought we cut out.
No, you're good. You're good.
Contemplating my deep intellectual thoughts and feelings.
When her dress does catch on fire, what do you? I don't know, because I was just so interested in the fact that she kind of doesn't really react to it. And I guess to kind of put, I don't know, a bit more of an analytical perspective on the joke you're making, like they're just so, they're so focused on each other that she doesn't even notice. Is that kind of the angle you're coming from?
The passion of love catches fire.
I think that is what I thought when I was first watching, but then I think about the actual portrait.
Yeah.
And which is, I do think is interesting that we do not see, I really thought we would see that portrait get created. Like, I kind of thought, like, I almost wonder, because you almost think, I don't know, this is what I was thinking at least. When she destroyed the first portrait, I was thinking like, oh, is she going to like, instead of painting the portrait she's being asked to paint, is she going to paint this? And that be her kind of rebellion against what's happening?
Yeah.
But that isn't what happens. She does end up
No.
just painting, and this is almost like you don't even see her paint this. So this happens after.
Yeah, it's like a reflective thing.
Yeah.
It's like a long shot, and it's interesting, and it's yeah. And it's like her covered by like darkness, and I guess I've really never thought too much about like the title or the meaning of the fire part specifically, which is kind of interesting.
Well, what about the actual portrait? What is your interpretation of it? Yeah.
Well, she's like in the dark. I'm literally coming up with one now because I've never even thought about it.
I can't believe you haven't thought about this after 3 watches. That surprises me.
Yeah. Well, how about you don't judge me like that, huh?
Well, no, it's not that. You're just so honed in on other aspects of it. That's just surprising.
I don't know. She's surrounded by darkness because she's got to go out in the deep dark world. But the fire of their love is behind her, and it's on the dress behind her. I actually don't even remember because I can't remember the portrait exactly. It's also not really a portrait, huh?
Yeah, it isn't really a portrait, is it? That's a good point. But she calls it that. Well, okay, then maybe it is about. That's because you're right. It is not a portrait. It is intentionally a landscape shot, right?
Yeah.
I wonder then, is
it's kind of
titled that way
intentionally, right?
Yeah, because it's like it is. Well, I don't know. It's a painting about making the portrait of this woman, right? Like the portrait itself. I don't know. It's not the portrait, but it is about the portrait. I don't know. That's. I didn't even think about that part until now. That this is not even a portrait. That's a really good point. But I don't know what the actual.
I think it's kind of part of the. It's not really a joke, but it's like the mysterious lady on fire. Like it's a cool name for a movie, first of all. So it's a cool name for a painting,
yeah.
Even if it's not not actually a portrait. I did notice, and I didn't know this before, but on the Wikipedia page, it says that a more direct translation of the title is a portrait of a young lady on fire, which doesn't really change anything, but I thought that was interesting. Yeah. No, not in English at all. But she does say it at the beginning, and it kind of sounds like the English title, or it sounds like portrait is the same word. But that's really cool when she says it at the beginning. Whoa.
So okay, for the actual painting. The main portrait of a lady on fire. My perspective on it when I was thinking about it was it's a lot about like she's she's standing very like upright and proper. I feel like it's like she's playing the role of the proper lady, but she's on fire. Like she's in a, I don't know, like it's a painful thing. Like she's in danger. This is not like good for her, but she's just kind of maintaining that expectation of being, I don't know, playing the role she's meant to play as a proper lady. But that's kind of the vibe I got. But then I think about the actual scene where she is on fire, and it is all about, like you said, to me at least, it's about the like being so engrossed in that like kind of love and observation of the other that she doesn't even notice herself that she's on fire. Or maybe that's almost plays into Marianne, where she's so focused on Eloise that she herself is kind of on fire. She doesn't even notice like how she's so focused on Eloise's reaction at the end, like that her own feelings and reactions kind of like not even the subject anymore. It's very focused on the other. But yeah. I feel like that doesn't play into the actual painting at all. It feels like two completely different things to me.
Well, I think the painting is more so like Marianne's like it like reflects her reflections on what happened, right? Um,
Yeah.
because she's kind of looking up at the moon here. Like, is Marianne supposed to be the moon and they're looking at each other or something? Um, the fire is also behind her. Is like
Mm.
she's marching away and Marianne is
Yeah.
the fire or something? Could she? It's only briefly on her and then it got put out or whatever. Um, she didn't even notice her. That's not really true, but um,
And
yeah, I really don't know.
the landscape, I don't know if it's just I don't know, because when I look at this, it kind of looks like a big empty
Yeah,
wasteland, very much like, I don't know, not like a hellscape, but just thinking it from the Orpheus myth perspective, it's like if this is like she's marching out of hell, right? We are kind of
mm.
following behind her, and she's not turning around to face us. So I wonder if it's more the rather than Marianne being the moon or the fire, perhaps
Oh
it
yeah,
is
she's
her
not looking at her.
perspective, and this
Yeah.
is like this might even be her. If this is after the orchestra scene, which I would assume it was well, obviously this scene where she's looking at the portrait in the studio is after, but
Yeah.
assuming this was painted after, this is almost like an interpretation of the final scene of her watching Marianne, not Marianne, sorry, watching Eloise, watching the orchestra, like watching, I don't know, not looking at her, but like clearly in pain, clearly not in a good place, on a fire. Maybe
Yeah.
that's maybe that's it, because it definitely doesn't feel like a recreation of the actual scene where she's on fire. It feels very
No, no.
different.
It's just like that's like the way she sort of remembers her, I guess, is the
Yeah,
she her dress went on fire that time and I do like that it's more interpretive of the final scene. Um, that
but
tracks with me.
the imagery of the fire, her being on fire, was just so striking,
In a
so it makes
fire.
sense. But I do
Yeah.
that actually. I think I've kind of worked this one out in my head now, just by trying to talk it through a bit. That
Yeah, I like
because I was
the
wondering why, because it didn't really feel like it was conveying the same thing as that scene, as the actual fire scene. But cool.
Well, we've got another change, everybody, but this time it's not because of internet issues, it's because of battery issues. Can you believe it? So you're gonna have to deal with this audio quality from now on. Don't worry, Mia still sounds good, so that's good.
Yippee.
Anyway, we were proof there. You see, the we were talking about the hymn. The music sounds exceptional. I put it in my OST playlist that I try to
Oh
listen to
really?
while writing scripts, but usually
Ooh.
pause. So it's pretty good. But I do really like that, and I do really like the music at the end. I think the sparse use of music is very good. Um, makes it pop or whatever when it's actually used. And that hymn will never leave your brain. It'll just. And I'm not going to try it, Mia. Don't try to make me
Hmm.
sing here.
Well,
But,
it's actually on the music point. I don't know. I think the only music that stuck out to me was all the diegetic music, the hymn,
that's the only
and
music, I think.
is it really? Is there
Yeah,
no like um there's no like scoring?
yeah. I don't think there's any scoring. I
How
don't
did I
think.
not even clock that? I actually I do want to rewatch this movie. I was actually planning. I was hoping if I had the time to do another watch before the discussion, because I really wanted to be more locked in on the first half, because I felt like the second half made me really appreciate the first half, but I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of refresh a little bit. But I don't know, maybe
Hey,
having
did
the
you ever give
discussion
a
before
rating at the
that.
beginning?
I did not, and I'm hesitant to do so, because I feel like
Oh.
I impulsively give everything I like 5 stars. And
Oh.
I mean, I had literally no problems with this movie, and I think on a rewatch I would only like it more.
Is that Is that how you would do 5 stars? Is it like no flaws were found? Is that what your mindset would usually be?
I think so. I don't know. I give 5 stars based on how much did I mean it's really just how much did I like it. And
Hmm.
I have really liked some very crappy movies enough to put it absurdly high. I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
I actually think about this a lot because I think about Surprise. I think about Gunbuster. I think about talking about Gunbuster.
Hmm.
I think about, well, actually, more so Diebuster,
Oh yeah.
where I think about how I was like, is this
Tycho's the best character of all time.
that's factual? I think about like, is this really good? Because do I have problems with it? Probably, yeah. Did I feel like it was saying something profound? Not really. But did I enjoy? Did I just enjoy Die Buster? Yes, and that's why it is good. It is good. You said something along the lines of "It's good because I think it's good," and I'm like,
Well, yeah. Well, I
"Yeah,
think that's
fuck
what
yeah,
everybody does. I think the rest of it is just like trying to be objective nonsense, but
yeah."
I feel like
That's
we've
the thing. I feel like
touched on this
I
before.
try very hard to be objective, but talking about Die Buster completely changed my thoughts on that. So now if I watch like something that is like objectively pretty mediocre, but I had a really good time. Like I think about The Fifth Element as a kind of bad movie. I watched I think it was last year I watched that, but I really liked it. It was like probably one of my highest rated movies I watched last year. But it's kind of like a campy little crappy movie, but I absolutely adored it.
Do
It's
you
weird.
think?
So yeah, go for it.
Do you think that internal perception of it being crappy is just what you think other people will think about your opinion?
No, I was watching that movie and I was like, this scene is terrible. This scene is bad. Like it wasn't like bad. It wasn't like so bad it's good. Like a The Room situation. It was just so
Eye
over the
rolly?
top, very eye rolly. Yes, so over the top, eye rolly. I can't take it seriously, but that's okay because I'm just having so much fun watching it. I don't know. So
Yeah.
when I think about rating things, this is one of those things where you watch it and you're like, okay, this is just a very well made film, and I really loved watching it. But when I think about like, if I gave,
Enjoyment factor?
yeah, I don't know. Well, if I gave shitty movie that I had a fun time laughing at, if I gave that like 4 stars, how could I give this anything but five? You know, that's what I kind of think. Like
Four
if
and a half exists?
I guess but you know what I mean, right? Like if it's something that is like such just I don't know profound good art, how could I put shitty movie I had fun watching on the same level at all? You know,
Well,
so whenever I rate, I've become so hesitant to rate things. Like now, when I do my Twitter media thread, last year I was putting scores. This time I'm not because I would get like I would look back and I was like, why did I give the original Alien like a 7? That is like a really
yeah.
brilliant movie, and I feel regretful anytime I score something. Like I saw Weapons, and I liked Weapons a lot, and I gave it a 5 stars. But I would not say it is anywhere near as good as this movie. So
Okay.
it's stupid. So I don't know. When I letterbox this one, I'm probably giving it a 5 stars, but I really need to think about how strict I am with the 5 star rating.
I guess usually, I think 5 star for me is usually just something. This is not true, but it is a starting point for getting to the truth, I think. It's probably just something that I identify with a lot. And I don't
Oh,
mean
okay.
personally, I mean in terms of like taste, where I'm like, this would be a good representation of like something I like. That's not true. A good
Mm,
representation of the impression I would like to give off. Well, not that I would like to give off, but like basically something I would absolutely defend. I guess that's more so how I think, but it also is, it feels representative of me in some sense, I
okay.
think.
Interesting.
Um, so like this movie I think is great. I think I vibe very much with all of the relationship stuff. I think all the thematic stuff is really interesting. I think it's very pretty. I think the entertainment factor is really good. Um, something. What's another 10? I don't know. Every Evangelion thing. Like, I really like Evangelion. I like every aspect of Evangelion. I can talk forever about Evangelion. Um, like that sort of thing. But then, like, because I have very few nines, but they are very like steadfast nines, like Cowboy Bebop or Vinland Saga, where it's like they almost get there, but there's like something missing to the point where I'm not like super dedicated to Vinland Saga in the
Right.
same way I would be to Attack on Titan or Berserk. But also these like run the gambit, right? Because there is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Evangelion. These are like respected prestige stuff. But then absolutely, probably the third best anime of all time is The Great Die Buster, which is
Yep.
a more funny, more zany um, type of thing to those other more prestige type things, media properties, whatever you want to call them. But I guess there is no inherent value to me of like prestige versus funny. I think hold equal weight, and the funniest thing would be equally, well, not equally as good, but would be of the same caliber to be 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 as something that's very serious, which I guess you would describe
Mm.
this movie as, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. I don't
it's
know.
sort of like usually a measurement I do is like I shouldn't have to think about whether or not it's a 10. Like it's a 10 or it's a 10. Like I made that video one time. I don't know if you ever watched that, even though you are a One Piece fan, where it's like One Piece was a 10 from panel 1 because Luffy stabbed himself in the face, and that was epic. And then like One Piece has sort of that personality the whole time. So even though I've only actually read 250 chapters of One Piece, I've been stuck on Skype here for like 4 years. Uh, it's still like a 10. I did the same thing actually for Dr. Stone, which is funny because I probably wouldn't say that
Interesting.
anymore. But the
Yeah.
personality of Dr. Stone, I was like, this is absolutely awesome. Um, and there's certain things like that. There are other things. It's usually movies where things do sometimes go from 4.5 to 5. Like Casablanca at some point went from 4.5 to a 5. I nearly gave Chunking Express a 4.5, but I gave it a 5. And I would probably that's probably one of my more favorite movies. But that because there are some things, and I think you might be going through this with Portrait right now, where it's like the more you think about it, in a sense, is like that was really cool. Like you know what the kind of the representative is like if it's a 10 out of 10, I would want to like accidentally in quotation marks make it like my phone lock screen, and I want like people to like see it and
Mm.
think the imagery is cool or like ask me about it or something like that. That's like a 10 out of 10, you know? I'm going to put the Chunking Express poster there, and if somebody recognizes it, I'm going to be like, that's a cool person. I might put the Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It was my wallpaper on my laptop for a little while, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. There's something about like the
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like the representativeness, the identification, the also just obviously the general like for it. Because I guess there are other things like I don't know, Faye Valentine is pretty cool. I probably could see a world where she was my lock screen or something. But Cowboy Bebop's like a 9. So maybe I just undermine that phone screen point, but I don't know. It is interesting. You do just it is well very, 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 very arbitrary at the end of the day. Um, so I guess I just have like a robust like instinct almost for what I think a 10 is. Um,
Hmm. Okay. So
it's sort of
then
inherent.
you. I feel like I don't remember if you said this already. What is your star rating for this?
Oh,
Out of
5
five?
out of 5, of
5 out of 5.
course, yeah.
Okay.
I have a
So
bunch, yeah.
what
Everything on my
was?
top 10 list is a 5. And there's
Oh,
a
okay.
bunch more. I think I got like 22 5-star movies or something, but like 5 of them are Harry Potter movies, so you know.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned with I think you said Casablanca as an example of
Yes.
it was 4.5, but then there was like a moment that brought it to a 5, right? What was the
No,
moment?
it was thinking about it afterwards. It
Oh,
wasn't a
okay.
moment while watching it.
For portrait.
Casablanca is interesting because I think the first
Mm.
like 45 minutes is like an 11 out of 10. And then the rest of it is like a 9.5 out of 10. And that sort of
Okay.
evens out. Um, but in Portrait, are you going to say like, when did I realize it was a 10 or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. Did you have like a
Let me
moment where?
cast my mind back.
Mm,
Um, I think it would be very important if I knew it was a romance, but I
mm,
really don't remember if I knew or not. Um, I do remember a big thing for me usually, especially with movies, is like am I like constantly checking the thing to see how far I am? Like, is it like not engaging me on that level? And I remember being shockingly surprised at how much I was engaged in the movie, especially when it seems like theoretically so boring at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just the build-up of the intrigue. I think, and I've talked about this a little bit with my personal taste a lot, where like Attack on Titan like enamored me when I was like 12 because I was like immediately there's like 7 mysteries and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to think about these mysteries. This is great. Where did the walls come from? Where did the Titans come from? Why are these Titans different? Aaron's a Titan? What happened to Aaron's dad? Or what's up with Mikasa? And there's like a million different like little things, and it's like a mystery. It's like the mystery box meme. It's like, oh, this is, I just want to speculate on this. So
Mhm.
intrigue and mystery is definitely a big thing. So the initial intrigue of like, how are we going to get the painting? What does this girl look like? Then it's sort of like, what are we doing here? And then obviously it like then diverts into very much like characters with the love stuff. But by then also, obviously, a big thing with me is I like romance stories a lot. So the pivot into that away from mystery was never going to lose
Mm,
me. Where I don't know,
I
I
see.
could see maybe somebody having that point.
I
But yeah,
I feel like the when I think what was the moment I would have decided like this is 10 out of 10, 5 star. It's probably was the fire scene. I think that was kind of the moment where I don't know. I it wasn't like I felt like the film could do like no wrong from that point. I don't know. Actually, maybe that is exact. I think from that point, I was like, okay, I fully trust that this is going to deliver. So I've already almost decided this is a 5 stars. Maybe if it did something like if it really didn't stick the landing somehow, could have changed things. But
yeah.
that was the scene where I was like, okay, they're cooking. They are absolutely cooking. I'm locked in.
There are movies, some like I think I was like this with Challenges where I was like halfway through and I'm like, this is 5 stars. Like, let's not fuck this up. Because I think when I watched Challenges, I hadn't seen like a 5 star movie in like a year or something. And I kept like looking for it and I was like, oh, In the Mood for Love, not good enough. Whatever else, not good enough. And then I finally got to Challenges and I remember being like an hour and 15 minutes in and being like, this is fucking great.
Yep.
Uh, don't fuck this up. And it didn't. Challenges is one of my favorite movies too. Didn't quite make the top 10 list. But I've definitely been cautious of that before where I've been in it. I'm like, oh, it's like the in the middle realization that it's like a 10 out of 10. Because I do often have the moment where I'm watching the credits and I realize it's a 10. I remember having that for when I played the original The Last of Us for the first time. And the build up of like the famous last little musical note of that before it cuts to the credits. I remember watching the credits and being like, "Whoa, that was like the best thing I've ever seen."
Mm.
Um, I feel like there's other examples of that too. That is a very interesting. Like, when did you realize it's like really great? Because even like with something like Berserk, like I remember like Berserk's reputation and getting into the Black Swordsman arc and being like, oh, well, it's not that good. And I don't know at what point I would have like twisted into being like on the side. It's always fun when the reputation thing also plays into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Even with like Monster or whatever, which I read recently and I wasn't as enamored with. Like I am, everything I say about Monster is negative just because it pisses me off that people like it so much. So that like sort of colors it as well, even though I did give it a 8 out of 10 or whatever. Um, I don't know, expectations, ranking systems, what you like and don't like taste. What a journey we're all going on. I don't know. But we got to get Mia some better movies.
That is true.
That's what we attempted to do today. Um, Now, the next thing on my notes is to talk about the initial love scene. Do we want
Yes.
to move there, or do you have
Yeah. Yeah.
more
Let's do
things to
it.
say? Um, so you know, Mia, a great thing in movies is like lines that are good. Um, and I remember because this is actually interesting because we have spent a majority of this talking about sort of thematic stuff, which is interesting
Mhm.
and obviously lends itself well to discussions and stuff like that. Um, Definitely the part of the movie I liked the most, especially the first time, was all the romance stuff. Um, Particularly, I liked the sort of equality of it, um, which I came to think at the time. I don't know how I think about it now. Um, I was a very loveless loser in 2019 when I watched this for the first time, and I remember being really like enamored by the equality of it, and obviously I don't know, the tenderness of it, the sensualness of it, and all that stuff. The equality thing stood out to me a lot back then, I think, because obviously with like male and female sort of dynamics, there's very usually a power dynamic, and it's usually cartoonishly in either direction.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember thinking it was like, oh, it's so like pure, and man, I wish I could be in a relationship like that. Which is usually, it's kind of a fleeting thought. I don't think I actually want that, but I remember definitely thinking I wanted that at the time. And then like 2 years later, I would get into my first relationship after that. So that had all sort of, it was sort of out of mind by then. But I was definitely really enamored with that, which is kind of, it seems, because obviously in a lot of lesbian relationships, well, traditionally, how they usually portrayed is sort of there is a more masculine role and a more feminine role.
Yeah.
I don't think it plays out. I really have no idea what actual lesbian sex is like. And frankly, I don't really like lesbian porn, so I'm not even too caught up to date on that.
Too up
But
to
I don't know
date.
if the sexual aspect is usually more tender or more dominant slash submissive and
Well,
stuff like
I
that.
would
But it very
probably
much
say
feels
so.
not that way here, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
I
But go
wonder,
ahead.
because I think a lot of it, I don't know. I like when you think about the kind of dominant and submissive kind of roles, I think are we getting into this? I don't know. I almost think
It's not
you.
particularly that, I wouldn't say, because obviously that is more like a lot of sex is obviously very performative and
Yes.
stuff like that. But I don't even think it's. I think it's like almost inherent, right? I feel like even sex acts themselves, like it's it's difficult to like view. I don't know, like a doggy style is like now. Obviously, power bottoms is like a thing that exists and is like a concept. But it's very hard for there not to be like an inherent power dynamic of like somebody is bent over and somebody isn't,
Yeah,
and
that's kind
obviously
of what I was
penetrated
getting to.
versus
There's
penetratee
like,
or whatever.
yes, I was gonna
Um,
say the penetration is kind of the important
yeah,
aspect. That kind of, I don't know. It is almost impossible to, because it's when you kind of look at it without any
like
romanticism,
yeah,
it is very like it's an invasive thing to do, and to, I don't know, you have to, for it to be good, you have to be, the person who is on the receiving end kind of has to be very willing to allow
yes,
that invasion of their body to happen, to
and they
make
have to
it
sort of like that
invited.
aspect, like inherently. Um,
Yeah, to be the one, like to, you have to kind of view
for
it
it to be
as a
mutual.
becoming, I don't know, you're inviting them in rather than being invaded on. And
Yes,
the, when I think of a like a sapphic relationship where that is not really an aspect of it, you, it almost feels a bit more mutual, and it feels like, well, there is somebody who's kind of being the giver and somebody's the receiver. It feels like inherently, at least when you think about it traditionally, you probably would think it's less invasive. I mean,
yeah, but
obviously it
even
can be
outside
worked
this,
in.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's two outside aspects to this. The other aspect is like usually the guy is bigger, which
Yes.
is also like an inherent thing. Whereas both of these girls are relatively the same size as far as I understand, which is
Yeah.
an aspect. Oh, what was the second aspect I was going to bring up? Oh, also, uh, I don't think it's different. There's something. Oh, we're getting explicit here. Like, I feel like a blowjob is like an inherently sort of like submissive act. Now, I know most women don't feel that way, actually. I feel like they usually think they are in control when they're doing it. But, like, on the other end, like, cunnilingus is like, to me, it feels like, it doesn't feel like there's a submissive and dominant role there, though there kind of is also.
I don't know.
Um,
I think it's all, that is a good point. I think it's like, at least my interpretation of it, my thoughts on it. It would be like, you, the fact that you are the one providing, and you,
yes.
like the feeling that you are doing a good job. You know, you are, you like, I don't know, you're the giver, and you know you're doing a good job. That is almost not a submissive
Yes.
thing at all. Yeah.
Because it's complete, because it really, at the end of the day, is performative, because it's like the giving pleasure thing. Like, if somebody's like writhing in pleasure, you feel like that's obviously more dominant.
Yes.
Kind of, but then like most of this is too arbitrary. The sort of point here is that it never comes off like the love, and because this is kind of a bigger aspect, is that we never actually see any actual sex scenes in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Which I think there's like two aspects. There's usually the aspect of like, especially from like a third party watching it, sex is usually like absurd and sort of funny to watch.
Mm.
Where like it's just like it either looks silly or it looks too sexy or something like that for it to be like romanticized in the way. So it's almost important that we don't literally see the act.
Yeah.
I think that is an aspect of it. And I think I don't know. Yeah, I think that is the end of the point there.
One
Sort of the
thing
equality of it.
on the roles part, this actually really stuck out to me immediately when obviously when the before the relationship really begins and it's very clearly like artist and subject. You do feel like Marianne is the one who's kind of the one the more dominant one, but then when they have their first kiss, the not the like first one where it kind of happens and then Eloise runs away. I think it's the follow up to that. Eloise
rests her head
takes
on her shoulder.
Yeah, well, yes, but she takes a much more dominant stance when like they have that second kiss, the very mutual one. Like beyond like the surprise of it happening and her anxiety around it happening when they're actually fully embracing it. She is like, like Marianne is below her. Eloise is above. She has like the hand behind. She's like holding Marianne's head. She is the one like she kind of really takes control of it, which was really surprising to me because that is not the dynamic you expect building up to it, because she's like the quiet and meek sheltered girl, and Marianne is the artist who like has a life. She has a world outside of this. She's had love before.
The I think that it's interesting because earlier, I think the first point I made is the like identifying, like sort of from the male perspective, identifying with Marianne a little bit. And initially, I remember watching it, I remember thinking like, well, this kind of goes against that because she is a little bit more in the submissive sort of role here. But then I think that could further the sort of the masculine not portrayal, the not perspective, the identification with her is sort of like a lot of the time like men do sort of revert to Little Spoon when they're alone or something like that, or once the tension has been breached kind of. So I sort of maybe see it as an extension of that. Maybe I don't know, I'm just thinking about it now. There's also another point I was trying to get to, but I forgot it. So, true, it was interesting there, because after that, it is more. It sort of goes back to the original dynamic a little bit. It's interesting, and I assume it would fluctuate.
I do think it. I don't know. It doesn't like because it's not like Eloise's entire character is going to change over it, but I just think they do a good job with her. Yes, different aspects come out, and it really lends towards the feeling that this is a very mutual thing between them. Because like you could very easily, even unintentionally, portray this as like the more experienced woman from the outside world is kind of taking advantage
coming onto
of this,
the less experienced one,
less experienced one, and like I don't know if grooming would be the right word, but that
like
kind
guiding
of
them through the experience,
and you do not get that feeling at all. And I think that it was a
No.
very good choice because you could very easily accidentally fall into that unintentionally, that conveying a lack of mutual feeling in there, or at least to think that one of them has feelings that's a bit more fabricated or like I don't know, groomed into
Hesitant
into
almost,
existence. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think again, not showing the actual sex is pretty important for that, because
Yes.
otherwise you probably would have to do that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because when you actually show the sex of it, you would probably have to decide who is the one. I don't know. You would have to kind of give them roles in that. If you're,
Yeah.
especially because you don't want to have a really long and drawn out scene where they're like, you know, they're taking turns and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
If you show too much, you're kind of I don't know. You're going beyond, I think, what would fit the tone.
Yeah, because
So
I
I think
guess
it's a win-win to not show it at all, I think.
yeah, the thing we see is kissing a lot, right? And first of all,
Yeah.
spit trails, kind of crazy.
Those were crazy.
The but kissing is a very like mutual. Obviously, there could be a power dynamic to kissing, but it doesn't have to be. Whereas maybe like some of those other sex positions we talked about, sort of there is an inherent, or it's more tilted in a certain direction. I feel like kissing is definitely a more like mutual, like they go in for the kiss at the same time. It's easy to portray that as equal. And so yeah, that's probably why we see that opposed to anything else. But outside of that, I have some lines written down, some of the romantic lines they say to each other.
Sure.
My goodness. Do all lovers think that they're inventing something? I remember thinking
That
that
was a
was
good
like
one.
the most profound line ever. It didn't hit as well this time, but I don't know. I think it's just because I've heard it a few times now. But I thought that was a great line. And then there was like a "You dreamt of me, no, I thought of you." That was really cute because
Yep.
it's like I didn't involuntarily have a brain, like I was consciously thinking about it. It is very
Yes.
cute, sort of subversion on like I dreamed of
And
you
that's
as
good.
sort of
Yeah,
like
that again, that plays into the mutualness of it and making Eloise feel like she's not this like again, she's not the one being kind of led into this, because it puts intent, it puts a lot of intent behind it. Yeah.
There's also, because I really like that we see a lot of this stuff. Because this used to be a complaint I would have all the time, and I think that my whole anti-Vinland Saga video, the one about Gudrun and Thorfinn, was about this, where it's like, oh, we don't see any of their relationship stuff. Like, it would have been cool to see the moment where Thorfinn actually like realized he liked her or something like that. And I remember I used to frame it all the time as like, we should have seen a sex scene like Guts and Casca, where that is what happens. Like that. Well, you do see like practical sex elements there, and there's obviously the panel at the beginning where they kiss for the first time, very cute. But it is like the Guts and Casca's like whole thematic journey in the Golden Age arc culminates in that scene, and it's sort of like along with the sex stuff, along with the emotional release of it all, and sort of like a big dramatic scene. Good, pretty good. And I remember thinking that was like one of the only examples of something I had seen at the time in like 2018 or whatever of that sort of stuff. So I do really like I don't because I have other negative examples. Like I really hated the end of Full Metal Alchemist. I don't have you seen any Full Metal Alchemist
Yes.
stuff?
Yep.
Oh, well, like the admission at the end I thought was so lame, because I thought they built up Winry and Ed a lot, and I remember being pretty invested in that. And then like him making a dumb alchemy like reference, and then them just like deciding they would get together later, and then the worst thing you can ever do is cut like an initial maybe they admit feelings for each other, then a cut to 10 years and they got kids. Kill me. That's the worst one of all time. That happens in a lot of things. But I really like the realization moment. I like their lines to each other of sort of like not believing it's happening and sort of reveling in it happening. Like I really like that moment, that specific moment. And it's not the actual sex part, which is what I used to say a long time ago about the because Guts and Casca was like the key example of the one that I liked. It's this part that's more important, I guess. and the cute little lines and the moments and stuff like that. But yeah, that was that point, I guess. They also get high and and they rub it in the armpits, which is probably the most sexually explicit thing in the whole movie. And it's
Yeah,
so
that was
time lasts
crazy.
longer, which I thought was cute. It's also like a coming of age thing, like
Yes,
uh,
definitely.
sex and drugs. It's like Attack on Titan kind of did this. I used to point this out all the time with it's chapter 123 where they all get drunk in
Yep.
Liberia or whatever with the Turkish family. No sex in that because Attack on Titan sucks.
True.
But true. And then my next up point is the fight, which we already kind of talked about. Oh, and then obviously the run on the beach, and they forgive each other because the mother's coming. That's a really good scene where she runs to her on the beach and she grabs her from behind. Cute.
There was the abortion scene with
Oh
Sophie.
yes, that would have been in here.
Because that really stuck out to me. Because that is when I really started thinking like, okay, this is actually I think I started thinking this at the fire scene first about this being kind of, I don't know, for her almost a little coming of age-y, but I guess more just the experiences of womanhood. But what really stuck out to me, the fact that you have this abortion happening and the camera is just focused on her looking at this other child next to her, which I didn't even consider what you said, that like that child is probably from a abortion that did not happen. Yeah. So like she is quite, I mean, everyone, obviously abortion is a complicated subject with a lot of strong feelings behind it. And I do have, I don't know, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I think there is space to kind of accept abortion as a kind of necessity for the well-being of women, but also the kind of sadness of, there is a potential life that is being cut off there. And I took that scene as kind of a statement a bit on abortion, on like, yes, she's having this done because, giving birth is just not, there would be no real like good to come out from it.
Future
just, like,
in it?
not, exactly. It would not be good for her. It would not be good for the child. But as this is happening, she is kind of just almost looking at the child that could have been had here while she's having the abortion, and it's a very emotional scene because she's so, it just says, it shows that like how much she does care and values the life there, but like she almost has to, she knows she has to do it. It just really struck me, her like looking at the baby, holding the baby's hand, the fact that the baby took her hand into his as it was happening, and like she didn't like pull away from it, she held on to it like a comforting thing. I don't know, that just really stuck out to me. And it felt like a moment of tenderness, and it's not like a middle ground fence sitting thing of like, oh yeah, it's bad for a life to not be born, but women also have the right to an abortion, and it's kind of, I don't know. I would hope that if somebody was very either, like, because you see a lot of people with abortion where it's like, if you're on the pro-abortion side, you almost like, I see a lot of people go to extremes where they kind of almost revel in it. And because you want to emphasize the importance of that right. And then you have people on the other side who are like, it's a tragedy, it's a terrible thing, and you are evil for doing it. And I feel like this is kind of in the middle where it's like, this is a very sad thing and it has to happen, and it's okay to be sad about it. That's how I felt about it, at least this scene. I know it was kind of a big
Yeah, it's
ramble.
interesting. Because I took it a very different way, where I thought the reason why the kids were there is because Sophie looks really, 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 really young when she's like lying on the bed. And I took it as sort of like she's a kid herself, like she isn't ready to have a kid.
Oh my
Uh,
god, yeah, she's like, that's actually, wow. I didn't think about it that way at all, but I think that is a really good point. Like
I do, because
she
this
is
was the
with
first.
them.
Yeah, this is the first viewing where I remembered this scene actually like sticking out to me a lot.
Mm.
Because it is really cute that the baby like grabs her hand. I really didn't think it was trying to take a stance on abortion too much. Like I assumed it was just.
Yeah, I didn't feel of
Very
it
loud.
as, I think a stance isn't the way I would
Yeah, yeah,
put it.
I know.
It's
Yeah,
more like, it's just
um,
kind of it is a very truthful display of it, if that makes sense. It is almost making a statement in how much it is not making a statement, if that makes sense. Where it's like, it's not
yeah,
trying to show it as like a good or bad thing. It's just like, this is kind of the nature of it, where she needs to happen. She needs this to happen. And it's kind of a sad thing. And that's kind of that. I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of the nature of abortion. At least to me, from my
I don't.
perspective.
Yeah, because I definitely see how you would get there. I don't think I took it as a sad thing really at all. I think it's like incidental that the baby and there's like two kids on the bed also.
Mm.
Um, I kind of read it as sort of like the awkward moment where there's just like little kids around and they're like not old enough to like understand what's happening. So like, and the adult that's always around them is not like concerned that you're having like a conversation in front of them where you're like, oh,
Mm.
maybe these kids shouldn't hear this, but it's like
Yeah.
they really don't understand. There was like an awkwardness that was captured there that I thought was interesting. Um, it also
I
very
do
much
think,
felt like
agree. Yeah.
because almost on this island, all we see is it sort of feels like a society of women almost, even though there are men
Yeah.
around, assumingly they're just off camera. So it felt like this is another step, like this. Well, not another step because of course it's another step, but it's like this is the place where like the deciding whether or not to have a kid happens, where it's like you can have the abortion or you could have the kid and just leave it here if you need to, because this is sort of like
Mhm.
becoming a makeshift like orphanage or something. um I sort of just saw it as like the two outcomes, I guess. But yeah, I did particularly think the scene where like the baby grabs her like hand and stuff and she sort of grabs its hand in like discomfort. I did definitely think it was like an evocative scene. um
Yes.
and really just remembered it for the first time. Also, in this scene, the shot of them all waiting outside was really cool,
Yeah,
especially in
I
like the
did love that
character.
shot. Hmm.
Yeah, because like Marianne is like sitting there with her hands in her pockets or whatever, and Heloise seems not really to know what she's doing, and she's kind of just sitting there. Um, and then obviously Sophie's pretty nervous. I thought that sort of characterizing shot was really cool. Um, did you have That's all I really have to say about that scene. Do you
Yeah,
have anything
that's
else?
all I mostly wanted to say. The it's just a very raw scene. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah. The next scene is Marianne makes drawings for both of them, which is really cute. In the book on page 28 and
Yes.
in a locket, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Um at
I'm
some
surprised we
point you'll
don't see
see
that
her when
locket
you
again. Do we see that
huh?
locket again? Do we ever see the locket again?
Huh. I think she might be holding it in the painting, maybe? I feel like I remember a locket in the painting.
But
Um
I thought Marianne has the locket, right? Because in the painting she had
yes,
the
you
book,
would
right?
actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
so probably not.
Unless she did she
Um
not take it with her? That's a good
Maybe
question
she
actually.
just got it in a
Huh.
drawer somewhere. I don't know. I guess, yeah, I don't know. Would you just carry it around? You might lose it if you carry it around to art galleries or operas. I don't know. The line here that I have written down is at some point you'll see her when you think of me, which is sort of a
Yes, I
different
love that one.
viewing thing we haven't really talked about yet. But there are a few lines like this in the movie where it's sort of like a capturing realness in a moment, um, or like reality. I guess the essence thing we kind of already talked about, but this is sort of like a as memory fades, like, and you see a picture and it doesn't really line up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting.
I do think I did think about that a lot actually. I don't know, because it does play into a lot of the point the film is trying to make about um I don't know, reality versus your perception of it and your interpretation of it, and that it almost tries to convey it as like impossible for the the viewer to have a full understanding beyond their own interpretation of what they're
Yeah.
looking at. I don't know. It's interesting because it kind of like plays into the last line of the film a little bit, where Marianne is saying, like, she says she's not sad anymore, but the student who was painting her like
Yeah.
said, well, you looked sad, and that was an interesting change on the whole, I don't know, perspective thing, where the artist almost had like a better understanding of the subject than the subject did of
Yeah.
herself, which is, it's an interesting way to, well, I guess that wasn't like, was that the final scene, or is that I forget, did that
Well, no,
happen
that's a little bit
after?
before the opera. Yeah.
Right, that is before the opera. Okay, good point. But still, that scene, that moment, I thought about that. I thought it was just
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
It's sort of a thing of like who sees the reality of it, like
Yes.
who's more willing to be honest. Like
Mm.
is Marianne like being defensive in saying that she wasn't sad, and it's like clear to the artist or something. But it's also like an interpretive thing of like if somebody makes an art piece and everybody interprets it a different way, but they didn't think it, like, which is the more real, like
Mm.
what essence does the art give off more? And then like is it just something like the author doesn't realize, like there's a Mad Men scene where Don Draper is making an advertisement, and like everybody that looks at it is like, well, obviously the guy in this ad is committing suicide, because it's just like his like shoes and like on the beach as the tide rolls in, and like his tie left there. And Don's like, oh, he's just going for a swim, he's on vacation. And everybody else is like, he's killing himself. And then
Yeah.
like Don is like going through a bad time, and maybe wants to kill himself at this point. So it's sort of a like everybody else can see it, but the artist can't. But I guess
Mm.
in this case, it's everybody else can see it, but the subject can't. And it's sort of like a perception thing. And I think I
Yeah.
talked about this with Bacon and Cowboy Bebop too, where it's like you give off a vibe that you will never understand or really like to other people. Like when they see you, um, you give off a vibe that you can't really control and you don't really understand. And even
Yep.
if you were to like watch yourself back on footage, like because you're watching yourself for the first time, you would be so hyper analytical in your little movements and probably find them like cringeworthy or something, that you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even focus on the general like aura you give off or something. But everybody else around you like inherently like understands it. And it's like a disconnect between how you're perceived and how you're like, and now this is an Evangelion little thing, but like the Oscar in Shinji's mind versus the Oscar in Misato's mind is different people, and how do you reckon with the fact that the the perceived version of you is never your actual self,
Yeah.
and like you can't actually control that, and all these etc. little identity things that are difficult. Um, but true, the subject, which Marianne was sad, she just didn't know it. She still, the love will never die or something. That's what we're saying here, except maybe not. Um, but yes, she draws on page 28.
Mm-hmm.
And then the art gallery scene is really cool. I really like it. The fact where she like clearly looks on the thing and sees like Heloise's name in it, and the realization on her face is really cool. You really only get that on a second viewing, where she's looking at the
Yeah.
thing and you're like, oh, she's gonna go and see it. And then she walks over and she like pushes through a bunch of people, and everybody's like, this is a rude girl. And then she just gets there and she sees it, and then you see it, and then you're like, oh my god, it's her. And then you see the book, and then you see the close up on the page, and it's the page number. It's like, oh my god, I'm crying right now. Are you crying? And then there's like the look on her face. That piece of facial acting might be my favorite bit of the whole movie.
Oh,
It's why I
really?
put it as my
Interesting.
Twitter thingy.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's like a, it's like a ecstasy moment almost of like, oh my goodness, it's like a mutual again. Even if the final scene sort of goes in a different direction. But then we get the opera scene. Oh, and the there's a few like direct cuts. I think you brought some of them up earlier. There is one at the end where it's like I saw her one last time, cut, and then you're right at the opera scene. But the
Yep,
like the rhythm of the cut is like really satisfying and
yes,
interesting. Um, and then obviously the opera scene, it's like a 2 minute long shot zoom in of
incredible.
the orchestra from the beginning, and a piece of facial acting there from Heloise, and then we she doesn't look, and we've kind of talked about that already. Um, Anything to say on any of that stuff?
I I think not. Yeah, we kind of already we hit it all. I just really loved the way this ended. Everything from the goodbye scene to the end was exactly how I would want it to be. I it was just perfect. I really really love the whole final act, I guess, of this movie.
Yeah, it's
And
the
again, God,
best.
Eloise's actress in that last scene is just spectacular. I cannot believe how good that moment is. Just the the slow breakdown. Man, have you ever watched Do you ever watch Better Call Saul?
I have not seen Better Call
Uh,
Saul.
well, there's one scene in Better Call Saul I think about a lot of just one character having a very slow breakdown and like just break down into crying, and this kind of hits the same exact way. It's just the ability to convey the subtle progression of emotion like that is just spectacular. I really really admire all of the acting in this movie. I think everyone is just spectacular.
Yeah, I feel like it's a type of scene I've seen before. I really can't put my finger on when else it would be, but the prolonged like acting shot, it's like
Hmm.
the big moment. This
Yeah,
one is a lot longer than usual though.
it because you know what it
And yeah,
feels like. It feels like watching a really good monologue, but without any
yes, there's
words.
yeah, it's true. I guess Black Sails would be the equivalent there with the monologues. Um,
Black Sails does have some very good monologues.
oh, yeah. Frankly, you don't even know. Wait, where are you up to?
Uh, um, I can't remember. I think I'm at the beginning of season 3, still very early on.
Unless it's the last episode, you don't know nothing. Anyway,
Exciting. Okay.
when Mia finishes Black Sails, maybe we'll do one of these. Who knows? Um, but yeah, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. My goodness, a movie that we like.
Yeah, I'd say it's a fiver for sure.
Mm, I like the sound of that. Um, do we want to? I guess is this where we do announcements and stuff like that? Me and Mia. Now I did say this at the end of my Steins Gate video with Jarky Bacon, but we have put it pen to paper. We have committed to Claymore. Oh my goodness,
Yes.
very exciting. I have read 5 volumes of it, just about.
Yeah. So how are we? How are we doing that? If you've read, I guess we're not going volume by volume. If you've done five, you need to
Oh
do a
well,
full.
my idea. I thought I said this, but my idea
Hmm.
was going to be 5 volumes, and then we
Oh,
would
okay.
do it. I
Got it.
don't.
So you're not going ahead
There's,
of that point.
huh?
You're not going ahead of that point then
No.
until we.
We'll pick a mutual place to stop.
Gotcha. Cool.
I'm basically seeing like there's like one chapter left, I think, and I'll see if it's like a good stopping point, and then maybe we'll push it to 6 volumes. I'm not sure.
Okay.
After 1 volume, I think we would have had like a 20-minute discussion.
Fair.
So this was one movie, and I think we're at
We
probably
are at 2 hours and 32 minutes
yeah,
of
we're
total
pretty far.
recording time. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we'll do that. Unless there are some Claymore fans in the audience, which I don't think there are yet, who know good stopping points. We'll just have to wing it. But at this point, where the point where I'm up to, I'm like, we could talk about this so far. But yeah, I'll keep you updated on that. So we will be doing
Cool.
Claymore. We could do more of these. We could get Mia into good movies. I got plenty of ideas. Uh, Blonde is a funny one. That was my first ever movie night. It's a movie that everybody but me in the world hates. Do you know what Blonde is at all?
No, nothing about it.
It's a Marilyn Monroe biopic,
Oh,
but
wow.
it's a very abstract and not at all a Marilyn Monroe biopic. And it definitely pissed a lot of people off. Funnily enough, there is some abortion stuff in there that I remember got traction that I
We
thought
love
was
abortion.
ridiculous. The way it was interpreted and made fun of by a lot of people. as saying that it was pro-life when I don't think that was the intention of that scene at all. But yes, it's a very, very, very abstract movie. I think I saw on your watch list on Letterboxd you had The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. Do you remember ever putting that on your watch list?
I think I did, because I remember hearing about that film and I wanted to watch it, but I have not
For
watched it.
all I did a movie night on that one too. I'm pretty cool. Actually, I don't know if I did, but I did watch it this year or last year. Anyway, it's the same director as that. He's a Australian guy actually. But yes, very, very abstract visuals. That would be really fun because I haven't watched it in a long time, and I do really, really like it, and I'm curious whether or not it holds up. So there's that as an option. I also want to rewatch Chunking Express, which is you know what Chunking Express is, Mia?
Nope.
Well, let me tell you about it. It's a Chinese movie. Do you know who Wong Kai-ri is at all?
No.
Well, let me tell you about it. Wong Kai-ri is a Hong Kong director, Chinese language and stuff like that. He made In the Mood for Love, which is a very famous romance movie that I watched and didn't really think was that cool. And then he made this other movie called Chunking Express, so a little bit before that. It's basically two stories that are slightly interconnected, about two couples, kind of. It's just another movie that's kind of similar like that. It's kind of a romance movie, I guess. And Blonde is kind of about womanhood, so I'm kind of trying to connect them all to Portrait of a Lady on Fire here. But Chunking Express is definitely on the short list of potentially breaking into the top 10 list. So I think both of these, well, Blonde I think would be an interesting discussion because I have no idea whether or not you would like it. I'm pretty sure you would like Chunking Express. I'm sure I could think of more options that are similar to Portrait. We could do things that aren't similar too. There's a wide variety of movies out here, and these are just me trying to get you to watch movies I've already seen. We could go anywhere. I guess where the point of this is trying to siphon the audience for potential recommendations, I guess.
Yeah, recommendations definitely appreciated. If you have ever seen a good movie, assume I have not seen it, because it's probably true.
Yeah.
The Godfather? Nope. Pulp Fiction? Nope.
Me and Alita, he was supposed to do The Godfather. He watched the first one, and then he kind of said it was good, but then kind of said that it was boring or something. And we were going to talk about it like 8 months ago or something, and it just never happened. So maybe we could rope everybody into that. Those Godfather movies, though, very, very long. Godfather 2, 3.5 hours.
Love
we can watch
movie.
The Irishman. That's like one of the best movies of all time. 4 hours. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We can do anything. You got anything to shill? Vinland Saga's dead.
Yeah, Vinland Saga is dead. It's over. So I'm thinking about what's happening next. I've had a couple ideas I've thrown around, but for now, taking a break and just thinking about what do I actually want to talk about. Because if I go and do something out of obligation, it will not feel good to do. I want it to be something that I'm really like drawn to talk about, and I think I'm excited to do Claymore. I'm excited to
yeah,
because that one has been on the list for a while.
Saga videos scripted, or were they just you talking?
Roughly scripted. I've done one major scripted video, and then the actual reviews are me following a like rough outline of notes.
Yeah, okay. Because the Claymore videos, which are probably going on Mia's channel,
Yes.
It'll be very different to that, I guess.
Yeah, but I've did when I did Planet Test with
that's
Bacon,
right,
that's right. Yeah, that was just full on discussion, so it would be very similar to that.
But yeah, maybe you'll be in love with Claymore and you'll just have to make Claymore videos.
That Claymore's done, right?
Yes, 2014 it finished, I think. My anime list told me. So it's been done for a long time. But yeah, we'll see. I think this is where we sign off.
I believe so.
Oh my goodness. Do you know the famous outro, Mia?
Support links in description.
Oh, you know it for the Chainsaw Man thing. Never mind. Support links in the description below. Get ready to press the stop recording button, Mia.
Thanks.